Chapter 91. After Mo Shi killed Sister Ponytail, he went straight to the corpse farm. The mastermind was Ma Xianxia. Then, there was only one end for him. Behind him, the members of the hunting group saw Mo Shi heading towards the corpse field. They all looked at each other in disbelief. In the end, everyone's eyes fell on Guo Jutao, the leader. Although Guo Jutao's words and actions were feminine, he really took on the responsibility of a leader since he became the leader. And he did a good job. So, everyone was quite convinced by him. At this time, in this situation, they naturally waited for Guo Jutao to make a decision. Guo Jutao frowned. Logically speaking, in this case, he should chase after him. What if the mysterious strongman killed others? Although he couldn't stop him from killing people, he should at least know the reason. It would be easier to explain to the people in the base. However, the mysterious strongman was full of murderous intent. If he followed him, he might annoy him. As long as he wanted to, it would be too late to escape. Who dared to go up? Wasn't that courting death? But as the leader, even if he was going to die, he had to bite the bullet. At least he should go and ask why Mo Shi killed people. He used to be the deputy leader of the corpse hunting team in Area A. He knew a little about Mo Shi. Mo Shi wouldn't kill people for no reason. Thinking of this, he said to the others, "I'll go first. You follow me from a distance. Without my order, no one should act rashly." But at this time, a person walked out of the crowd. It was Du Xiaodou, the leader of the first team. He said, "Leader, let me go. I probably know the reason." Huh. Guo Jutao turned around and looked at Du Xiaodou in surprise. "Xiaodou, you?" He went to see Xiaodou during the day. At that time, Xiaodou even had difficulty breathing. The doctor said that Xiaodou couldn't get out of bed at all for a month. Why did he suddenly appear in front of him now? Moreover, he looked even healthier than himself. Not only Guo Jutao. The other members also widened their eyes in shock. They looked at Du Xiaodou in disbelief. "Leader Xiaodou, why are you?" Du Xiaodou didn't wait for them to finish and said, "It's the mysterious strongman." Everyone suddenly understood. If it was a mysterious expert, then there was nothing to be surprised about. Ever since the mysterious expert had appeared, he had given people too many surprises. Until now, they were somewhat numb. It seemed that no matter what happened to the mysterious expert, they would not be surprised. Even if you say that the mysterious elite is a mutant, a superhuman, and has been injected with a super soldier serum, you will never be able to believe it. They wouldn't even find it strange if he had the genes of a giant dragon. On the contrary, he felt that it was more logical. However, they would never have guessed that Mo Shi really had giant dragon genes. Xiaodou continued. "I know a little about this. Someone wants to harm him. I was shot, the mutant zombie escaped from the lab, and the zombie in the graveyard broke free from its chains. All of these were targeted at him. I think he has already found out who the murderer is." When everyone heard this, they were all secretly shocked. Just who was it that had eaten the heart of a bear and the guts of a leopard to actually dare to harm the mysterious expert? Little Bean looked in the direction of the corpse farm and said, "He came to find me during the day. I believe that he wouldn't kill someone for no reason. So, I think it's better for me to go with you and ask. The rest of you can stay far away." Commander Guo Jutao pondered for a moment and said in a slightly feminine voice, "That's it then." Then the two of them ran towards the corpse farm together. Dozens of seconds later, they had already arrived at the entrance of the corpse farm. They looked into the courtyard. Under the moonlight, Mo Shi, dressed in black, looked like the god of death who was about to harvest lives. He stood in the courtyard and stared at a room in the courtyard. After a moment, the door opened. A figure slowly walked out from the crowd. Xiaodou and Guo Jutao both recognized the figure. The former chief of the base, Ma Xianxia. However, the old chief at this time seemed to have aged 10 years. His figure was also a little hunched. He no longer had the demeanor of a chief. He slowly walked into the courtyard and faced Mo Shi, who was like the god of death. After a moment, he sighed and shook his head. "You know everything." Mo Shi was speechless. Only the murderous intent in his eyes could be seen. Ma Xianxia nodded. "Yes, all of this was instigated by me. I resigned and came to the corpse farm because of you. The one who shot Xiaodou was actually aimed at you. Xiaodou was just too unlucky and ran into the gun. The mutated zombie in the lab escaped because of you. The zombie in the corpse farm broke free from the chains because of you. But there was a small mistake and they got into the wrong room. That was why I almost became a zombie. I am deeply sorry for this. When the two people outside the door heard this, they were extremely shocked. What was Chief Ma saying? He was the one who instigated all of this? How was this possible? Chief Ma's words completely overturned their worldview. Chief Ma had always been a positive person in their hearts. He could even be said to be a great person. Without Chief Ma, there would be no Base C1. Without Chief Ma, everyone in Base C1 would have either died or become zombies. But at this moment, such a person personally said that he was the one who instigated all of this. The psychological impact of this was too great. While he was shocked, Guo Jutao thought of something. He waved at his subordinates in the distance. He knew that this matter was of great importance. He had to let everyone know. And not only did he have to let them know, he had to let them hear it with their own ears. Otherwise, even if he told them, they would not believe him. Soon those people rushed over. Guo Jutao thought of something again and immediately reached into his shirt pocket. At the same time, Old Li and Happy were also awakened by the commotion. The two of them heard someone talking in the yard. Out of curiosity, they gently opened the window a little. Under the moonlight, in the yard, Mo Shi was still speechless. He was waiting for Ma Xianxia to continue. Although the moment Ma Xianxia targeted him, the outcome was already decided. But for a person like Ma Xianxia who had worked hard and contributed a lot, such a big boss behind the scenes, he was willing to give him a chance to leave behind his last words. Ma Xianxia did not seem to see the people outside the corpse farm at all. He continued, "But all of these are necessary sacrifices. It is impossible to restore human civilization without sacrifices. So, I don't regret it." Then, he turned his head and looked at one of his row of corpses. There was a hint of gentleness in his eyes. He continued, "That year, you were injured when you saved those people in the residential area of Block E. We extracted a few drops of your blood. After studying it, we found that your blood is very powerful. I plan to ask for a few more drops of your blood. As long as we studied your blood thoroughly, we believe that we could create more psychokinesis and hunters as powerful as you. But no matter how we searched, you refused to show up. We had no choice but to do this." Chapter 92. Under the moonlight, Ma Xianxia's figure was no longer tall. He looked a bit thin. He sighed and said, "Unfortunately, if you showed up earlier, we could have a good talk. Maybe you wouldn't be so hostile towards me. Then, the entire human civilization might be able to reappear soon." At this moment, Mo Shi finally opened his mouth. "One drop of blood is not enough. You want a few more. If a few drops of blood is not enough, do you want all of my flesh and blood?" Ma Xianxia did not deny. He said, "If all of your flesh and blood can be exchanged for the restoration of the entire human civilization, then I won't rule out doing so." Mo Shi said coldly, "You sound so noble, don't you have any selfishness? The zombie you secretly raised for more than 20 years, is it your wife? Maybe her body also has my blood." Ma Xianxia smiled bitterly and nodded. "Of course, there aren't many people in this world who don't have selfishness. I'm also just a mortal." Hearing this, everyone felt like they were struck by lightning. Raising a zombie for more than 20 years? This news made everyone feel like their whole world was about to be turned upside down. After the base was established, Chief Ma once drafted the base basic law. The basic law is the code of conduct for everyone in the base. One of the rules is, it is strictly forbidden to raise zombies privately. Violators will be killed without mercy. Although strict, zombies are extremely dangerous. If they are raised privately, if they get infected, the entire base will be finished. So for this rule, the people who have suffered from zombies are all in favor. But who would have thought that Chief Ma was actually raising zombies privately? And he raised them for more than 20 years. Who would have thought that the person who made the law would be the first to break the law? Ma Xianxia smiled bitterly and said calmly, "Xiao Min is my wife. Unfortunately, she was infected after the virus broke out. But although she became a zombie, I couldn't bear to leave her. So I kept her. Your blood has a strong restraining effect on the X virus. This gave me hope. Although zombies look like walking corpses, after our research, we found that the zombie's body is not dead, it's just that their cells are suppressed by the virus, so it's like they are dead. I fused your blood with Little Min's and found that Little Min's blood has regained its activity. That's why I want to borrow your blood. This is also an important reason. Xianxia said coldly. Are you sure you can recover your memories if your body recovers? Xianxia shook his head. I don't know, but we have to try. Xianxia's voice was cold. So, you want me to sacrifice myself to save all of mankind and save your wife? Xianxia said. If it were me, I would do the same. Xianxia's eyes were cold as he spat out 4 words. I'm not you. Xianxia nodded and smiled bitterly. I know. Therefore they could only resort to this method. Unfortunately, he failed in the end. Sighing, he slowly said, I only have one last request. Xianxia was speechless. Xianxia said, I know that there's only one outcome for what I've done to you. But, can I choose how I die? Xianxia didn't say anything. Xianxia nodded slowly at Xianxia. Thank you. Then, he turned around and slowly walked to the zombie room where his wife was locked up. As he walked, he sighed. Xiao Wei is a good child, but unfortunately, I've let you down. As he spoke, tears flashed in his eyes. When he arrived at the door of the zombie room, he took out the key that he kept close to him like a treasure and opened the door. At this moment, he seemed to have become much more relaxed. It was as if he had put down the heavy burden that he had carried for decades. In the room, his wife, the female zombie, saw the human appear. She immediately roared, bared her teeth, and waved her claws, wanting to pounce over. The iron chains rattled as they were pulled. Xianxia put a collar around his neck and fastened the iron chain to the collar. Everyone finally knew what he was going to do. A few members of the hunting group had already walked into the courtyard and called out, Chief! Chief, don't! Mysterious powerhouse, can you let the chief go? Old Li and Happy's door had also been opened. The 2 of them came to the courtyard. Chief! Old Li's eyes flashed. Happy held Xiaoxia's hand tightly. However, Xiaoxia was unmoved. Xianxia turned around and said to Guojutao, Xiaogua, send us to the laboratory tomorrow. The laboratory hasn't received a new zombie that has just been transformed for a long time. I should be able to help. Chief! Guojutao's voice was already choked with sobs. But Xianxia ignored him. He turned his head and looked at the female zombie. His gaze became gentle. He said softly, Xiaomin, it's been more than 20 years. We can finally be together. As he said that, he took a step forward with a smile on his face. Roar! The female zombie immediately grabbed his hand and pulled him over. She opened her mouth and bit his neck. Blood immediately gushed out. When the female zombie saw the blood, she became even more violent. She kept shaking her head left and right, biting Xianxia like a wild dog biting its prey. Xianxia did not resist. He just endured the pain and fixed the other end of his chain into the iron buckle on the wall. Then, he hugged the female zombie tightly. No matter how hard the female zombie tried to bite his neck, he didn't care. Blood splattered. It was unbearable to watch. Everyone was silent. After a while, Xianxia's eyes gradually turned gray. There was a final smile on his face. He turned his head and looked at everyone. Goodbye. In the next moment, he suddenly pounced on everyone. A beast-like roar came from his throat. Roar, roar, the 2 zombies, one male and one female, kept pouncing on everyone as if they had gone mad. The chains behind them rattled as they were pulled. Everyone was shocked when they saw this scene. They could not come back to their senses for a long time. Only then did the murderous aura on Xianxia slowly fade away. Looking at the 2 zombies in the zombie recovery room, he subconsciously held Happy's cold hand tightly. The moon hung high in the sky. It reflected this gloomy world. The next day, the hunting group asked for Xiaoxia's opinion. They announced everything that happened last night. When everyone heard the news, besides being shocked, they also found it hard to believe. They did not believe that Chief Ma was such a person. However, the leader of the hunting group, Guojutao, took out a recording pen. Last night, he knew that people would not believe it, so he had already recorded the conversation between Chief Ma and Xianxia. Once the recording was released, people were still in shock, but they had to believe it. In the end, they followed Chief Ma's last words and sent him and his wife to the laboratory. Mo Shi felt a little complicated. Such a person had always wanted to harm him, so he naturally deserved to die. However, this was not the ending he wanted to see. Was what he had done right or wrong? However, he only hesitated for a long time. After half a day, he thought it through. In the apocalypse, survival was the way to go. What nobility! What selfless sacrifice! All of that was courting death. This matter was over. Next, Mo Shi planned to go to Base C2. It was only about 100 kilometers away from the dragon ruins. He wanted to see if he could sign in there. Since the system was able to give him such a map, the items he signed in the draconic ruins must be extraordinary. Chapter 93. Now, Mo Shi's identity had been made public in Base C1. Old Li was naturally very surprised and couldn't come back to his senses for an entire day. Happy was very happy. Although she had long guessed that Mo Shi was a mysterious elite, she felt as if a stone had been lifted from her heart when she received confirmation this time. Moreover, Brother Mo was so powerful. How could she not be happy? As for the others, no one dared to approach Mo Shi. He had killed so many people in one night, including Regiment Commander Ma and Chief Ma. Who would dare to approach him? As for talking about him, they didn't even dare to. In the eyes of the people, talking about such a mysterious elite was equivalent to courting death. Although some people were secretly unhappy that Mo Shi had killed Regiment Commander Ma and forced Chief Ma to his death. But that was only in the dark. In the face of such a mysterious elite, they didn't dare to say a word. Occasionally, people would see Mo Shi on the road, but they would either stay far away from him or stand by the side. Otherwise, they would stand by the roadside and wait for Mo Shi to pass by before quickly leaving. Mo Shi didn't care about any of this. No one came to disturb him, and he was happy with the peace and quiet. Of course, most people were still grateful to Mo Shi. Mo Shi was cruel and merciless, but he had saved the base so many times. If it wasn't for Mo Shi, they would have become zombies long ago. Among them, the one who was most grateful to Mo Shi was Yang Kong. Now, Yang Kong couldn't do strenuous exercise. He had become an ordinary person. However, the gratitude in his heart towards Mo Shi had never changed. When he found out that the mysterious elite was Mo Shi, he took 2 bottles of Shifeng wine that he had kept for more than 20 years and went to the zombie farm. Although he was just an ordinary person, he wasn't as afraid as the others when facing Mo Shi. Mo Shi, Old Li, and Yang Kong finished the 2 bottles of wine. Old Li and Yang Kong were already drunk and hazy. Happy was worried that Mo Shi would feel uncomfortable when he was drunk. But when she saw that Mo Shi didn't seem drunk at all, she was relieved. Since Mo Shi had found out all the facts, the 2 people from Base C2 were no longer a suspect. However, guild leader Guo Jutao did not let them leave immediately. This was because the mysterious expert, Mo Shi, had instructed them not to let them leave. In a few days, he would go to Base C2 with them. That night, after midnight, Mo Shi spoke in his mind. System, sign in. The system's voice quickly sounded. Sign in successful. Sign in event. Killed mutated psychokinesis Ma Wei. Investigate the truth. Sign in reward. Blood Demon's Eyes upgrade. Psychic blessing. Leader's will. Dragon breath pearl. Mo Shi was a little excited when he saw that there were so many rewards. 2 events and 4 rewards. This was the first time. He carefully examined the rewards. The first 3 were all skills. After the upgrade, the Blood Demon's Eye could directly identify the level of any creature. Telekinesis Blessing was the same as Sister Ponytail's skill. It could be used to activate other people's telekinesis. The leader's will could control these people whose telekinesis was activated. In other words, the system rewarded all the abilities that Sister Ponytail obtained after her telekinesis mutated to Mo Shi. In the end, Mo Shi focused his attention on the Dragon Breath Pearl. It was a translucent pearl the size of a walnut. He could see the fiery red flames inside the pearl. And if he looked closer, he would find that this flame was in the shape of a dragon. A line of words appeared on the pearl. Frowny face Dragon Breath Pearl. Automatically activates when life is in danger. Creates the shadow of a flaming dragon and spits out flaming dragon breath. Can instantly kill any enemy below level 10 hunter. Note. Can be used repeatedly. When Mo Shi saw this, He couldn't help but smile. He planned to leave the base, but he was worried about Happy. With this dragon breath pearl, even level 10 hunters, strong mutated zombies, and mutated beasts wouldn't be able to harm Happy. However, Wuxia was still worried about this. That afternoon, he brought over a Titan Dragon Gene Enhancer and injected it into Happy. He hoped that she could become a corpse hunter. After all, the Dragon Breath Pearl was dead, but humans were alive. If she had some ability to protect herself, it would be much better than the Dragon Breath Pearl. However, to Wuxia's surprise, after Happy was injected, there was no change. He then tried another brain cell enhancer, but there was still no change. He could clearly sense with his telekinesis that after the medicine entered Happy's body and circulated once, it had no effect and was expelled through her sweat pores. Wuxia found it strange. In his opinion, the gene enhancer produced by the system was very effective. It should be useful to anyone. But he didn't expect that even the gene enhancer produced by the system couldn't stimulate Happy's potential. After that, he tried to bless Happy with his telekinesis. Happy still didn't react. Wuxia was speechless. Could it be that Happy was the legendary trash? Such a beautiful girl shouldn't be like that. Since he couldn't figure it out, Wuxia didn't think too much about it. Over the next 2 days, he signed in and received 20 recovery potions. He gave these recovery potions to Happy and told her to drink a bottle if she was injured. Happy was a little puzzled. She stared at Wuxia with a pair of expressive eyes. Wuxia explained, "Happy, I have to go to base C2 for some time." Happy was stunned. She couldn't bear for Brother Mo to leave. However, she was very sensible. She knew that Brother Mo must have something important to do there. She didn't ask much. She just looked at Wuxia with concern as if saying, "Brother Mo, you must take good care of yourself when you go there alone." Wuxia chuckled and rubbed Happy's head. He said, "Don't worry." Then, he took out the Dragon Breath Pearl and handed it to Happy. He told her what it was for and asked her to keep it with her. Happy's eyes flickered. She was reluctant to part with him, but she was also happy. Before Brother Mo left, he had done so many things for her. It meant that he had her in his heart. However, while she was happy, she couldn't help but be worried. Brother Mo was so powerful, but she was just an ordinary person. She was even a mute girl who couldn't even be considered an ordinary person. She wasn't worthy of Brother Mo at all. "All right, it's getting late. Rest early." As Wuxia spoke, he got up and was about to leave. However, at this moment, Happy suddenly came over. Her lips touched Wuxia's face lightly. Then, she seemed to be a little scared herself. She retreated in a panic. Her heart was pounding like a crazy deer. The blush on her face had already spread to her neck. His heart was filled with apprehension and fear. She didn't mean to do that just now. It was just that when she looked at Brother Mo's face, that impulse suddenly rose in her heart. She couldn't help but move closer. Oh no, will Brother Mo be angry? She wanted to apologize to Brother Mo, but she couldn't muster up the courage. Just as she was feeling nervous, she felt a gentle hand reach out to the top of her head. He gently rubbed it twice. At the same time, Brother Mo's voice sounded. "Happy, you've learned bad things." Chapter 94. Wuxia was a little surprised that he was kissed by force, but he understood. Sometimes, people would have the urge to kiss the person they liked. This was a biological instinct. It was a very natural thing. Although Happy was a more reserved girl, when she knew that she was about to leave, she could not help but have this impulse because she was reluctant to part with him. Wuxia touched the part of his face that seemed to still have a trace of warmth, and a happy smile appeared on his face. On the third day, the man and woman from base C2 were released. The leader of the hunting group, Guojutao, smiled apologetically to the two of them. "The matter has been investigated. The two of you are innocent. I'm sorry for making you suffer." The woman in leather, Xianxia, was indignant. But at this time, she did not dare to say anything. Now, she already understood that psychokinesis was not omnipotent. Level 4 psychokinesis was not enough to run rampant. If something went wrong and she was hit with another strong anesthetic bomb, she would have to suffer again. Hao Ren, on the other hand, had a smile on his face. He waved his hand and said, "It's okay, it's okay. I can understand. You're investigating a case. This is what you should do. Guo Jutao followed Mo Shi's instructions and said to the two of them, You said that base C2 doesn't have a laboratory or a corpse-raising room. Then our base will send 2 technical talents to you. One is a laboratory researcher, and the other is a corpse-raising person in the corpse-raising field. Then he called the researcher and Mo Shi over. The man and woman had been locked up for a few days, so they did not know that Mo Shi was the mysterious powerhouse. Mo Shi did not intend to reveal his true identity on this trip to base C2. He still enjoyed the feeling of hiding behind the scenes and quietly becoming stronger. Moreover, it was hard to know what was in a person's heart. Who knew if other people had good intentions? He was already so strong, but Ma Yongshi still dared to harm him. The two of them were naturally very surprised that base C2 could send them technical talents. The indignation in their hearts lessened a lot. Mo Shi and the others were about to leave base C1. Not many people came to send them off. Guo Jutao looked into Mo Shi's eyes and whispered, Don't worry, I'll help you take care of Happy and old Li. Mo Shi nodded. Thank you very much. Happy stared at Mo Shi while he stood by the side. There were faint tears in his eyes. Mo Shi went to Happy's side and comforted him. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. Happy nodded. She was very sensible and would not force Brother Mo to stay. She looked at Mo Shi with her watery eyes. It was as if they were saying, Brother Mo, come back early. Mo Shi patted Happy's head and messed up her hair. He said, Let's go back. Then, he turned around and boarded the helicopter. The helicopter's rotors began to spin as it slowly rose into the air. A cloud of dust rose from the ground. Watching Mo Shi leave, Guo Jutao began to feel pressured in his heart. The mysterious expert left. In that case, the safety of the base would be in the hands of the hunter group. In the past, he did not feel much pressure to maintain the safety of the base. But now that the mysterious expert had left, he suddenly felt that the burden on his shoulders had become much heavier. If there was another crisis like before, he was afraid that. After the helicopter rose into the air, Hao Ren said to Mo Shi with a grin, Hey brother, what's your relationship with that girl just now? Before Mo Shi could say anything, Xianxia glared at him. Hao Ren, what do you want? Hao Ren subconsciously shrank back. He chuckled. Nothing, I just think that girl is really beautiful. Seeing Xianxia's face turn cold, he quickly said, Of course, she's not as beautiful as you. Then, he secretly winked at Mo Shi. Then he said to Mo Shi, Brother, she's your friend, right? I could tell when we went to the corpse farm that day. You're really lucky. Mo Shi glanced at Hao Ren and replied faintly, Yes. Seeing that Mo Shi seemed to be hostile to him, Hao Ren could not help but wave his hand and laugh. Brother, don't worry. Although I, Hao Ren, am not a good person, I'm lustful but not obscene. And I also know that I can't bully my friend's wife. You can keep your heart in your stomach. Xianxia seemed to be unable to bear it anymore. She said angrily, If you don't shut your dog mouth, I'll sew it up. Hao Ren quickly shrank back and said, It's just a chat. It's just a chat. There's no need, no need. Then, he turned his head and calmly flew the helicopter. Xianxia, who was wearing a leather coat, snorted coldly. She leaned back in her chair. She ignored the others. Mo Shi was too lazy to say anything. As for the researcher sent by the laboratory, he did not say anything when he saw that the others were silent. The helicopter faced the sun and flew in the northeast direction. Base C2 was in the former Liaodong, and mountain. It was more than 1,200 kilometers away from base C1. The fuel Hao Ren and the others brought when they came to base C1 should be enough to last until they reached base C2. Mo Shi leaned against the cabin door and looked outside. He saw that as far as his eyes could see, it was all green. Abandoned cities and lonely villages were all occupied by green plants. Mo Shi looked at all of this, his thoughts fluctuating. More than 20 minutes later, a cry suddenly pulled Mo Shi's thoughts back. Oh no, there's a flying mutant beast. The next moment. Bang, with a loud noise, the helicopter suddenly shook violently. Outside the helicopter, there was a huge human-headed bee with a length of 10 meters. This human-headed bee had 2 pairs of blood-red wings. The widest part of its wings was 15 meters. Its 6 legs were covered with barbs. At the tip of each leg, there was a sharp, hook-shaped spike. Under the sun, it shone with a cold light. The strangest thing was that its head was a huge human head with a diameter of 1/2 meter. This human head had no skin, and it was badly mutilated. A pair of deep eye sockets. A javelin-like mouthpart poked out of the human head's mouth. The whole thing looked disgusting and terrifying. Mo sure used to think that the human-headed bees were named because their hives were shaped like human heads. But now that he saw this huge mutant human-headed bee, he finally understood. This was the real human-headed bee. He took advantage of the fact that no one noticed. His pupils suddenly turned blood red. The blood demon's eye opened. In the next moment, he checked the level of this mutant human-headed bee. Species: mutant human-headed bee. Level: Level 3 strong mutant beast. After the upgrade of the blood demon's eye, he could see the strength level of any creature. This was much more convenient. Since it was a level 3 mutant beast, these two people would not have a problem dealing with it. Mo sure naturally did not have to do anything. Hao Ren said to Xianxia next to him. "Zhenzi, you open it." Then he turned around and said to Mo sure and the researcher. "Brothers, I'll show you my skills." As he said that, he directly opened the cabin door next to him. He jumped out. He hung on the landing gear of the helicopter with one hand. His right hand waved to the human-headed bee and smiled. "The beauty opposite, look over here." Chapter 95. 95A Crossbow Arrow. Hao Ren hung on the helicopter landing gear with one hand. He was teasing the giant bee. The human-headed hornet seemed to be angered as well. It flapped its wings, and its 2-meter-long mouthpiece stabbed straight at Hao Ren. Hao Ren gently moved his body to the side, avoiding the stab. At the same time, he raised his right leg high above his head, forming a horse shape. He suddenly chopped down. Crack! The bee's mouthpiece suddenly broke. The head bee let out a miserable shriek. The poisonous needle on its tail, which was more than a meter long, was aimed straight at Hao Ren. Hao Ren smiled and said, "Beautiful women like to be F***ed? As you wish." With that, he moved his body to the side, avoiding the attack. At the same time, he chopped down with his foot. Crack! The 1-meter-long poisonous needle suddenly broke in the middle. Black venom suddenly spurted out. Hao Ren moved his body to the side, avoiding the spurted venom. Then he kicked the bee's abdomen. Bang! There was a muffled sound. The bee's huge abdomen suddenly burst open. The 2 pairs of wings drooped down weakly, and the whole huge body fell down. Hao Ren didn't seem to be satisfied. He shook his head and said, "I didn't use my strength, and you fell down. This won't do. Do you have any sisters? Call them out." However, before he finished speaking, on the mountaintop not far away, between the woods, a black mass of things flew out. There were probably hundreds of them. Looking carefully, they were all mutated bees. Each of them was about the same size as this one. Each of them had a huge human head. Hao Ren's expression changed and he shouted, "So many? Too many beautiful women can't take it." He quickly jumped into the cabin. Xianxia said angrily, "Crow's beak." Hao Ren smiled, "Zhenzi, it's up to you." Xianxia rolled her eyes at Hao Ren. He unzipped his leather jacket. There were 60 flying daggers in the leather jacket. Using his telekinesis, the flying dagger flew out and circled around the fuselage. However, the human-headed hornet seemed to know how powerful they were. It didn't fly too close. Instead, it extended its tail more than 100 meters away. Whoosh! Whoosh! They actually shot out the poisonous needles from their tails. Xianxia's expression changed slightly when she saw this. He hurriedly controlled the 60 flying daggers to spin around him. He blocked the poisonous needles. However, the venomous stings on the head hornets were not something that could be used once. After shooting out one needle, a new one would quickly grow out from their tails. Over 100 mutated human-headed wasps shot out over 100 poisonous stingers every time. Even Xianxia, who had level 4 psychokinesis, found it difficult to resist. Seeing this, Mo sure sent out his telekinesis, intending to think of a way to kill these human-headed bees. However, at this moment, an urgent alarm suddenly sounded in the cabin. DDDDDD, Hao Ren looked down at the dashboard and cursed. Damn it, the fuel tank was hit. We have to land and repair it as soon as possible. Mo Shi glanced at the ground. This was a mountainous area, so they couldn't land. More than 10 kilometers away, there was a large piece of flat land. Let's go there. Mo Shi pointed at the large piece of flat land. Hao Ren immediately controlled the helicopter and flew towards that piece of flat land. Soon, the helicopter landed on that piece of flat land. Xianxia quickly sent out her telekinesis to check if there were any other dangers around. Mo Shi took advantage of the fact that her telekinesis wasn't focused on the human-headed bees. He immediately spread out his telekinesis. It was just a sweep. Bang 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 bang. Almost all of the mutated human-headed bees' heads made a muffled sound. However, when Mo Shi triggered their brainwaves, he controlled the frequency to not be too high. So from the outside, their heads were still intact. In fact, they had exploded into a paste inside. Hundreds of mutated human-headed bees immediately fell from the sky. At the same time, Mo Shi's mind was filled with notifications of evolution points. Killed a level 3 strong mutated beast, gained 3,000 evolution points. Killed a level 3 strong mutated beast, gained 3,000 evolution points. Hundreds of mutated human-headed bees allowed Mo Shi to gain 300,000 evolution points in an instant. After a year of consumption, he had less than 6 million evolution points left. This time, he should be able to replenish a lot on the way to C2 base. At this moment, the helicopter landed on a large piece of cement. Although there were weeds that were as tall as a person growing on the cement, there were also a few trees that occasionally grew. However, compared to other places, there were a lot less weeds and trees. The helicopter had just landed and Hao Ren was busy repairing the fuel tank. Xianxia scanned the surroundings with her telekinesis and didn't find any danger. She immediately turned around and looked at the human-headed bees that were chasing them. But when she looked, she couldn't help but stare blankly. HM? Hao Ren heard her doubtful voice and also looked at the sky behind the helicopter. He saw that there was nothing there. There was no human-headed bees. The few of them were all at a loss. Xianxia carefully scanned the surroundings twice, but she still didn't find the human-headed bees. She frowned and shook her head. She said to Hao Ren, "Quickly fix it and leave." Hao Ren nodded. "Don't worry. Other than one thing that I'm not happy about, everything else." But just as he said this, his voice suddenly stopped. Everyone realized that something was wrong and walked to Hao Ren's side. They followed Hao Ren's gaze. They saw that there were more than 10 poison needles stuck in the helicopter. But this wasn't the main point. The main point was that the needle stuck in the fuel tank was clearly different from the other needles. The other needles were black. But this needle was copper yellow and there was even some rust on it. Hao Ren scratched his head and carefully examined the needle. He discovered that the needle was actually bronze. Hao Ren couldn't help but ask, "Are the human-headed bees now able to produce bronze in their bodies?" After Xianxia carefully examined it with her telekinesis, she frowned and said, "It's a crossbow arrow." The others heard this and were stunned. The most essential difference between zombies, mutant beasts, and humans was that humans could use tools and weapons. Mutant beasts naturally couldn't use tools and weapons. Even the strongest mutant zombies had never seen them use weapons. After all, for them, no matter how powerful the weapon was, it was not as good as their claws and teeth. So now that a bronze crossbow arrow suddenly appeared here, it could only mean one thing. There were other people here. And this person obviously didn't come with good intentions. Xianxia quickly spread out her telekinesis again to explore the surroundings. But the range of her telekinesis could only reach a radius of 400 meters. Within the range of her detection, she didn't see any other people at all. There were 2 mutant beasts, but it was obvious that they couldn't pose any threat to them. She could only shake her head to the others and said, "I'll be on guard. Hao Ren, you fix it quickly." Hao Ren nodded. "Don't worry, Zhenzi." Chapter 96. Hao Ren took out all kinds of tools and began to get busy. It seemed that he was very familiar with it. Generally speaking, people who became hunters focused on training and working hard to improve their strength. It was impossible to waste time on things like fixing things. It was really surprising that Hao Ren could fix things so skillfully. However, Mo Shi's attention was not here at the moment. His telekinesis covered a radius of 1,000 meters. Just as he released his telekinesis, he discovered that a figure had appeared more than 900 meters away. That person held a bronze crossbow in his hand and was running southeast. When Mo Shi planned to investigate carefully, that person had already run out of Mo Shi's detection range. Mo Shi frowned slightly. He did not chase after him. First, it would expose his strength. Second, what if there was danger? Third, it was not necessary. With his cautious personality, he would not casually take risks when there were no huge benefits. However, why did he feel that the way that person ran was strange? It seemed a little stiff. But compared to the stiffness of zombies, it was much better. And the clothes that the figure was wearing did not look like ordinary clothes. As for what was wrong, Mo Shi just used his telekinesis to roughly scan and could not tell. He just muttered in his heart. Could it be that this was a zombie with a higher degree of mutation? Then, he retracted his telekinesis and carefully scanned the bronze crossbow twice. He tried to find some clues from this bronze crossbow. As a result, he found that although there were a few fingerprints left on the bronze crossbow, but those fingerprints were very strange. Every fingerprint seemed to be there and then not. Mo Shi's eyebrows slightly creased again. But it did not matter. He still had a trick that could greatly increase the detection range. With a thought, he took out the virtual sentry tower from his backpack. The virtual sentry tower was activated and covered a radius of 5 kilometers. And Mo Shi's telekinesis, with the help of the virtual sentry tower, instantly covered a radius of 5 kilometers. He had a panoramic view of everything within a 5-kilometer radius. After his telekinesis reached level 10, he found that his telekinesis and the virtual sentry tower could interact. As long as the virtual sentry tower was activated, his telekinesis would be able to use the sentry tower to explore a radius of 5 kilometers. At this time, his telekinesis swept across a radius of 5 kilometers and quickly found the figure. The man was holding a bronze crossbow. A quiver of arrows hung from his waist. He was 1.8 meters tall. The strange thing was that he was wearing an ancient costume. It wasn't an ordinary ancient costume. Rather, it was similar to the terracotta army's battle armor and battle robes. Her hair was also tied into a crooked bun. Why was this person dressed exactly the same as the terracotta warriors? Cosplay. Then, he carefully investigated. The man's face was painted green. It was a pale green color. Moreover, this pale green face was broken. From his left temple all the way to his nose, there was a piece missing. But it didn't look like a zombie's broken body. The zombies were badly mutilated and badly mutilated. As for this green-faced guy, the damage on his face was like a broken vase that had a piece of it knocked off. Or rather, it was like an eggshell that was missing a piece. But the strange thing was that through the hole on his head, he could clearly see the flesh inside. He could even see that the brain inside was still beating. Seeing this scene, even the experienced and knowledgeable Mo Shi couldn't help but gasp in his heart. What the hell was this? It was called a terracotta army, but there was flesh and blood inside. It was called a zombie, but why did its shell look like it was made of clay? At this time, this green-faced terracotta army zombie was running towards the northeast at a speed of nearly 200 meters per second. A moment later, they passed through a half-collapsed door that was covered in green plants. This gate was in an antique style. Mo Shi carefully examined it and vaguely recognized a few large words on the gate. Teen. Army. Museum. Mo Shi understood that this was once the Terracotta Army Museum. Not far in front of this gate, there was a huge roof. The size of this huge roof was more than 50 basketball courts. On the roof, hundreds of mutant bats were hanging upside down. Each of them was more than 5 meters long. They were much longer than the mutant bats he had seen before. Below these bats, there were 3 huge pits. In these 3 pits, there were 8,000 terracotta army soldiers. The whole thing looked extremely magnificent and extraordinary. More than 8,000 soldiers and horses had been quietly standing for more than 2,000 years. Even when the world was swept by the virus, they still miraculously stood tall. Mo Shi carefully examined these terracotta army soldiers. There was no second monster like the green-faced terracotta army soldier. In his previous life, he had been to the Terracotta Army Museum. According to the guide, when the other terracotta army soldiers were unearthed from the 3 pits, they were either flesh-colored or pinkish-white. Only the kneeling terracotta army soldier, other than his hair, beard and black pupils, his face was completely green. There were many guesses about this. Some said that the green-faced terracotta army was a prank by the craftsman. Some said that the green-faced terracotta army was similar to a shaman. Some said that the green-faced terracotta army was used to scare the enemy. Mo sure guessed that this terracotta army soldier might have been cuckolded by his neighbor. But now, it seemed that it was all nonsense. The reason why he painted his face green was most likely related to his current appearance. At the same time, Mo sure remembered an article he had read before. It said that one night, an old man guarding the entrance of a museum was killed. No matter what, the murderer could not be found. In the end, blood was found on the hands of a green-faced terracotta army soldier. After comparing it with the old man's DNA, it was found to be the old man's blood. Some people said that this green-faced terracotta army soldier was resurrected and killed the old man. Of course, Mo sure thought that it was all nonsense. At this time, he spread out his telekinesis, trying to find the green-faced monster. But after scanning the place 3 times, he could not find any trace of it. Mo sure shook his head and stopped paying attention to it. Whether it was a green-faced monster or a green-faced fatty, he did not care. He thought that if he went to the museum and signed in, he should be able to get a special reward. He looked at the others and saw that they were not paying attention. His pupils immediately turned blood red, and he looked in the direction of the museum. There was indeed corpse energy there. But there was very little corpse energy, only a wisp. Obviously, this was the corpse energy of the green-faced monster just now. Since there was corpse energy, that guy must be a zombie. Mo sure thought for a while, turned to the other 3 and said, "I want to pee." Hao Ren laughed and said, "Brother, you really have a good taste in this kind of place." Mo sure was speechless. "Pee?" Hao Ren grinned and said, "Let's do it here." Mo sure glanced at Xianxia and said, "There's a woman here, I can't pee." Xianxia snorted, "TSK, as if you haven't seen anyone before." Hao Ren laughed. "Be careful, your little bug will be eaten by mutated beasts." Mo sure didn't pay any attention to him. He stepped on the tall grass and entered a small forest more than 10 meters away. The next moment, his footsteps were light. With a few steps, he was more than 500 meters away. When those people were completely out of sight, he used the dragon shadow step. With one step, he ran 1,000 meters in the direction of the museum. Only a 10-meter-tall dragon shadow was left behind. But even if it was just a shadow, it was still domineering. Fortunately, in the forest, and far away from those people, he was not seen by them. Chapter 97. Mo sure covered 1,000 meters in one step. With every step, he would leave behind a 10-meter-tall and 30-meter-long dragon phantom. Then, it slowly disappeared. In just 4.5 steps, he arrived at the half-collapsed entrance of the museum. He scanned the surroundings with his psychic power again. He still didn't find the green-faced monster. He shook his head and decided to ignore it for now. He said in his mind, "System, sign in." As soon as he finished speaking, the system replied, "Frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, Qin Shi Huang's Terracotta Army Museum. Sign in reward, Qin crossbow." Mo sure frowned and sighed. He was obviously not satisfied with this Qin crossbow. He already had the sky-killing dragon spear as a long-range attack weapon, so this Qin crossbow seemed quite useless. It couldn't be more powerful than the sky-killing dragon spear, right? He checked the Qin crossbow in his backpack with his mind. Qin Nu's appearance was also very ordinary. A wooden bow and a bronze crossbow. It came with a wooden crossbow arrow. Compared to the demon-devouring dragon spear, even the sky-killing dragon spear. Forget it, let's not compare. Mo sure smiled bitterly. He focused his mind on the Qin crossbow. An item introduction immediately appeared on it. It was very simple. There were only 7 words: frowny face Qin crossbow. Pierce through everything on earth. When Mo sure saw this, his furrowed brows suddenly relaxed. Pierce through everything on earth, what kind of concept was this? In other words, nothing on earth could withstand a blow from it. Mo sure suppressed the excitement in his heart and asked, "System, you only gave me 1 crossbow arrow? It's useless after 1 shot?" The system replied, "Frowny face, you can specify the sign in reward. Received crossbow arrow." Mo sure nodded. That's more like it. At this moment, the system's voice sounded again. This is a special place. You can sign in twice a day. A smile appeared on Mo Shi's face. This was good. He said again, System, sign in. The system replied instantly, frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in location, mutated bat lair. Sign in reward, mutated bat king gene enhancer 1. Mo Shi's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Thinking of this, he was looking forward to it. He took out the mutated bat king gene enhancer. It was a blood-red liquid. It was as red as fresh blood. He rolled up his sleeves and injected the mutated bat king gene enhancer into his left arm. Then, he used his telekinesis to carefully observe the flow of the medicine. After the medicinal energy entered his body, it flowed along his blood vessels to his heart. Then, it was pumped out by the heart and flowed through all the blood vessels to the rest of the body. In the end, the medicinal power fused with almost all the cells in his body. A new type of gene appeared in his body. At some point, he felt a burning sensation on his back and between his ribs. This burning sensation was mainly concentrated on his 2 shoulder blades. Mo Shi had a bad premonition. He lamented in his heart, "My clothes." In the next moment, Ryup, a clear and crisp sound came from behind. His back immediately felt much cooler. At the same time, a pair of blood-red wings with a wingspan of 5 meters appeared. This pair of blood-red wings was similar to a bat's in both shape and appearance. At the tip of the wings, there were sharp claws. These claws were not like the claws of ordinary bats. Instead, they were like crescent-shaped sickles. Cold light flickered on them, and the atmosphere was oppressive. Mo Shi's mind moved. The pair of wings circled around his body and reached his chest. Looking at this pair of blood-red wings, he was quite satisfied. He tried to flap the wings. His whole body immediately flew up shakily. Although it was a pair of wings that he had just obtained, these wings were like his arms, and he didn't feel any awkwardness when using them. However, this was his first time practicing flying. He couldn't quite grasp the strength and the amplitude of the wings' movement. Swaying, swaying, swaying. He flew around the museum. He gradually got used to it. His speed wasn't slow either, reaching 300 meters per second. Although it was much slower than the dragon shadow step, it was much faster than other hunters. One had to know that other hunters, even if they reached level 10, only had a speed of 200 meters per second. Moreover, if it was inconvenient to use the dragon shadow step on special terrain, this pair of wings was the best choice. After a test flight, Mo Shi landed. He retracted the wings back into his body. On his back, the skin that had been torn apart before quickly closed again. It was as smooth as new, as if it had never grown wings before. At this moment, a gust of wind blew past. Mo Shi only felt a chill on his back. He sighed. This pair of wings was awesome, but it was a waste of clothes. Then, he took out a piece of old clothes from his backpack and put it on. He turned around and glanced at the museum. Mo Shi hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he didn't go in to investigate. He always felt that this museum was too strange. He clearly detected that the green-faced monster went in. However, after entering the figurine pit, the green-faced monster disappeared. In the apocalypse, survival was the way to go. As for the others, they were all secondary. Thinking of this, he just used his telekinesis to scan slightly. In the next moment, the hundreds of mutated bats hanging upside down on the roof of the museum were suddenly torn apart. For a moment, the entire museum was like a heavy rain of blood and broken limbs. The 3 figurine pits were all dyed red with blood. All of the 8,000 terracotta soldiers were dyed red with blood. In Mo Shi's mind, the system once again refreshed. Killed level 3 strong mutated beast, gained 3,000 evolution points. Killed level 3 strong mutated beast, gained 3,000 evolution points. After a moment of counting, this wave of killing a total of 300 mutated bats, gained more than 1 million evolution points. Seeing this, Mo Shi nodded with satisfaction. He didn't stay any longer. His feet lightly stepped, and his figure instantly leaped forward. Only a 10-meter-tall giant dragon shadow was left behind. At the same time, after Mo Shi left, in the figurine pit, tentacles as thick as fingers drilled out. If one looked carefully, one could see that each tentacle was made up of hundreds and thousands of extremely small arms. After these tentacles drilled out of the ground, they were like small snakes, crawling in all directions. Soon, the entire figurine pit was covered with blood-red tentacles. Moreover, they climbed along the legs of the terracotta soldiers and climbed up their bodies. The terracotta soldiers suddenly seemed to be formed by blood-red tentacles. All of the tentacles were greedily absorbing the blood and flesh of the bats on the ground. In a short 5 minutes, the blood and flesh of the 300 bats were completely absorbed. Then, in the figurine pit, blood began to seep out from the tentacles. Soon, the blood in the figurine pit was enough to cover the ground. A thick smell of blood immediately spread out. The tentacles were still quickly seeping out blood. Half an hour later, the 3 huge figurine pits had turned into 3 huge blood pools that were about 1.5 meters deep. These 3 blood pools, the largest one was the size of 30 basketball courts. The smallest one was the size of 5 football courts. At this time, the blood had just reached the neck of the terracotta soldiers. Looking from above, it looked like thousands of human heads were floating on the water. Extremely strange. Chapter 98. Mo took another 4.5 steps and returned to the grove. When he left, he used his telekinesis to create a telekinesis illusion to replace himself. After reaching level 10 telekinesis, he could use his telekinesis to create a temporary telekinesis illusion to replace himself. Psychokinesis could be used to confuse the enemy. Ordinary people couldn't see telekinesis illusions, but psychokinesis could. It could be said that telekinesis illusions were a godly skill used to deceive psychokinesis. Naturally, he did this to prevent Xianxia from detecting any abnormalities. When he returned to the helicopter, it had been repaired and was waiting for him. Hao Ren saw Mo and laughed. You changed your clothes just to relieve yourself? Did you pee on your clothes? Mo smiled bitterly and said, That shirt was very old. It was scraped by the thorns on the tree just now and turned into strips of cloth. The researcher knew that Mo was a mysterious strong man. He wondered if he had gone to kill zombies and mutant beasts just now. Hao Ren and Xianxia were puzzled, but they didn't suspect much. After all, in their eyes, this corpse keeper was just an ordinary person. Then, the helicopter slowly rose and flew toward the northeast. However, when Mo looked down with the blood demon's eye, he frowned slightly. He saw that there was only a wisp of corpse aura above the museum just now, but now it was full of corpse aura. It covered a 5-kilometer radius around the museum. It was the first time Mo had seen such a strong corpse aura. The corpse aura of the dam and the C9 base was not even worth mentioning compared to this. However, the corpse aura here was not the strongest. About 1,500 meters to the west of the museum, there was a small mountain there, which was the mausoleum of Emperor Qin. The corpse aura above the mausoleum was even more terrifying. It directly covered half the sky. It was like a blood-red sandstorm that covered the sky and the earth. There was even a large amount of corpse aura in the center that seemed to be solidified. Even when millions of zombies had besieged the city, there hadn't been such a strong zombie aura. Even Mo couldn't help but feel a chill when he saw the almost solidified corpse chi. Moreover, the corpse chi gave him a very oppressive feeling. He had never felt this way when he saw corpse chi before. Obviously, the zombie that could produce this kind of corpse energy must be a terrifyingly strong zombie. And according to his previous experience, that guy's strength is likely to have surpassed level 10 mutant zombies. Mo thought to himself, the wilderness is really dangerous. It seemed like he had better stay in the base and improve his strength if he had nothing to do. Although Xianxia couldn't see the corpse energy, as a psychokinesis, her senses were far stronger than the average person's. She frowned and looked in the direction of Emperor Qin's mausoleum. I keep feeling that there's something wrong with that mountain. Let's leave quickly. Hao Ren didn't say anything this time. He piloted the helicopter and quickly left the mausoleum. When Emperor Qin's mausoleum was about to disappear from their sight, Mo looked back again and glanced at it with the blood demon's eyes. He saw that the corpse energy still covered half of the sky there. The rest of the journey was very smooth. With the previous lesson, Mo didn't think about anything else. He used his telekinesis to explore the surroundings along the way. Once there were zombies and mutant beasts that were a threat to them, they would be killed immediately. Xianxia would sometimes detect the zombies and mutant beasts that Mo killed. This made her feel a little scared. She felt that there seemed to be a strong person in front of them. Otherwise, how could she explain the mutant beasts and zombies that were killed along the way? But no matter how she probed with her telekinesis, she couldn't find any clues about the strong person. Finally, 2 hours later, they arrived at the sky above Base C2. Base C2 was half the size of Base C1. There were no walls, but there were 3 10-meter-high walls from the inside to the outside, which surrounded the base. Before the helicopter landed, Mo used his telekinesis. It went directly into the researcher's mind. The researcher's name was Xiao Di. After Mo's telekinesis went into his mind, he began to stimulate his brain cells. His brain cells quickly became active. His brain waves also became stronger. Soon, the activity of his brain cells far exceeded that of an ordinary person. The strength of his brain waves also far exceeded that of an ordinary person. He had reached the strength of level 1 psychokinesis. However, this was not the end. Mo continued to stimulate his brain cells. His telekinesis continued to increase. Level 2. Level 3. Level 4. Finally, his telekinesis stopped at level 5. From an ordinary person to a level 5 psychokinesis, it only took more than a minute. This was the power of the telekinesis blessing. When Sister Ponytail raised the ordinary people in the base to psychokinesis, most of them were level 1. Only one was level 2. This was because she was only a level 5 psychokinesis. Limited by her telekinesis, she could only raise it to this level. And Mo's telekinesis far exceeded her. Therefore, he could easily raise others' telekinesis to level 5. Of course, if he wanted to forcefully raise it to level 6, he could do it. However, that would consume too much of his telekinesis. There was no need. Naturally, Xiao Di also felt his own abnormality. His brain kept heating up. At the same time, he felt his mind clear and his eyes clear. The feeling that came from his head made him want to moan in pleasure. But at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Stay calm, as if nothing happened. That voice was like a great bell in his mind. It was deafening and intimidating. He could not help but obey the voice's orders. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and pretended as if nothing had happened. Seeing this, Mo nodded in his heart. The leader's will was indeed powerful. The reason why Mo wanted to raise Xiao Di to psychokinesis and use the leader's will on him. Naturally, he wanted him to be his informant. After what happened before, Mo knew deeply that in this apocalypse, zombies and mutated beasts were not scary. What was scarier than zombies and mutated beasts was the human heart. Therefore, it was necessary to set up an informant in advance. Hao Ran and Xianxia, who were next to them, could not imagine that the two people next to them were not ordinary people at all. They were psychokinesis, which was far more powerful than them. One was level 5 psychokinesis. The other was level 10 psychokinesis, which they could not imagine at all. Soon, the helicopter landed. Hao Ren called people over and arranged accommodation for Mo and Xiao Di. He said, "Don't neglect them. They are technical talents." Mo and Xiao Di were temporarily arranged in an apartment next to the hunting group. After entering the room, Mo probed with his telekinesis again. He entered Xiao Di's brain. He ordered Xiao Di, "Don't expose your strength. If there is any important news in the future, report to me." Xiao Di's response came quickly, "Yes." At the same time, Mo had spread out his telekinesis to explore a radius of 1 kilometer. It was his first time here, so he had to be careful. At the same time, Hao Ran and Xianxia had already gone to the base chief's office to report. Chapter 99. After Mo and Xiao Di settled down, Hao Ran and Xianxia went to report to the chief of the base. The chief's office was in the hunter group's headquarters. Mo's mind power probed out, and he could easily detect their every move. The chief was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was also a hunter. Seeing the two of them enter, he put down the documents in his hand and said, "This time, we sent 9 helicopters to the other 9 bases to exchange information. You two came back the latest." Hao Ren lowered his head and said, "I'm sorry, Chief. We ran into some trouble." Then, he told him how the people of Base C1 were hostile to them, how strange things happened, how they were locked up in the detention room and so on. As for how they were suddenly cleared of their wrongdoings and who did those things, the people of Base C1 didn't tell them at all. Naturally, they didn't know. Then, they told the chief about the construction of the laboratory and the zombie farm. The bureau chief agreed with this. The helicopters that came back earlier had brought back all kinds of news from the other bases. They said that a few bases had built laboratories to study viruses, hunters, and psychokinesis. Their base C2 hadn't built a laboratory yet. He was planning to build a laboratory. In the end, Xianxia said, "Chief, on our way back, it seems that there was a strong person in front of us." The chief's eyes narrowed slightly. Xianxia continued, "On the way back, my psychic power could often detect the corpses of some mutated beasts and zombies on the ground. It seems that these mutated beasts and zombies were all killed in one move and torn in half. And even some level 5 mutated beasts and zombies were killed in one move." Hao Ren's expression changed slightly. "There's such a strong person?" The chief thought of another point. "You mean he was in front of you all the way?" Xianxia nodded. "It seems so." The chief frowned slightly. "In other words, he's probably in our base now?" Xianxia nodded. The bureau chief pondered for a moment and asked, "Could it be the 2 people you brought back?" Xianxia shook her head slightly. "The 2 of them are just ordinary people. They've been with us all this time, so it can't be them." When the bureau chief heard this, his expression became even more serious. "The strongest hunter in our base is only level 5. The strongest psychokinesis was only at level 5. If it's really as you said, then the strength of that powerhouse is obviously far beyond level 5. He sneaked into our base without anyone noticing. He must be up to something. Hao Ren, tell the hunter group to be on high alert. Xianxia, remind all the psychokinesis members to secretly investigate the base. Let's see if we can find anything." The 2 men looked at each other and said, "Yes, Chief." In the end, the bureau chief said, "The 9 helicopters we sent this time brought back a lot of useful information. I'll get someone to explain it to you in detail later, so you can understand the current situation." When Mo heard this, his heart skipped a beat. The world situation was important information. Soon, someone came over to explain the world situation to Xianxia and Hao Ren. From this, it could be seen that the chief thought highly of these 2 people. From this person, Mo understood a lot of things that he didn't know before. And what surprised Mo the most was that people in other bases had seen a zombie from afar. That was a much stronger and more terrifying existence than a level 10 strong mutated zombie. With a roar, more than 30 level 10 strong mutated beasts' heads exploded. All the other zombies, even level 10 strong mutated zombies, were obedient in front of that zombie. Because that zombie was much stronger than a level 10 strong mutated zombie. So they called it a super mutated zombie. When Mo heard this, his heart trembled. There was a super mutated zombie? At the same time, he remembered the king that the 2 zombies mentioned when he killed them in the blood pool. It was very likely that the king was a super mutated zombie. With his current strength of level 10 psychokinesis, he could easily kill a level 10 strong mutated zombie. Then what about a super mutated zombie? Mo felt that his telekinesis might have a little advantage. But the other party's roar could explode the head of a level 10 strong mutated beast. In other words, the other party could use sound waves to attack. That's hard to say. It seemed that in the next period of time, he had to sign in well and improve his strength. That night, Mo signed in and injected 10 enhancers. After these 10 enhancers were injected, his body's strength finally improved again. He reached level 10 hunter. In the next half a month, he continued to sign in and give out enhancers, increasing his body's strength to the limit. At this point, whether it was his telekinesis or his body's strength, he had reached the limit. If he wanted to break through again, he really needed a certain opportunity. Perhaps, the Dragon Ruins would be his opportunity. However, in the past few days, he hadn't gone to the Dragon Ruins. After all, he didn't know much about the wilderness around Base C2. It wouldn't be too late to go to the Dragon Ruins after he understood the surrounding situation. At the same time, in the past few days, the base had already begun to plan to build a laboratory and a corpse farm. Of course, the preparations would take a long time. Therefore, Mo was very idle these days. He wandered around Base C2 every day. In the eyes of others, He was taking a stroll and wandering. But when Mo Sure was wandering, he had been using his telekinesis to investigate everything in Base C2. As long as anyone talked about Base C2 and the situation around the base, they couldn't escape his detection. Finally, after a month, he had almost figured out the situation around Base C2 and the surrounding area. The strength of the strong mutated beasts and strong mutated zombies around Base C2 was much stronger than those around Base C1. But they were all below level 10. Mo Sure could easily deal with them. At the same time, he also heard a strange thing. 100 kilometers to the east, the plants there were blood red. Mo Sure took out the map and looked at it. 100 kilometers to the east was the location of the dragon ruins. This made him frown tightly. He thought that as long as he found the right opportunity here, he could easily go to the dragon ruins to sign in. He didn't expect that there would be something strange about the dragon ruins. Why was it so difficult to level up? If his thoughts were known by other hunters and psychokinesis, they would probably want to kick him to death. We only level up once every 4 to 5 years, or even 7 to 8 years. You level up several times a year. You think it's difficult? Difficult my ass. That night, it was drizzling. Mo Sure lay on the bed, eating the roasted chicken that he had signed in from the cafeteria while drinking beer. He waited for the arrival of 12 o'clock. However, at around 11:30, an ear-piercing alarm sounded in the base. DDD. Chapter 100. At night, Mo Sure took out the virtual sentry tower and set it up on the roof of his apartment building. It was better to be careful as he was new here. 11:30 p.m. Mo Sure felt a little hungry. He immediately took out the roast chicken and beer and ate happily. In the past year, in order to make his mental power and physical strength reach the limit, he almost never went to the cafeteria to sign in. Now that both of them had reached the limit, he could finally satisfy his hunger. Just as he was happily eating the roast chicken and drinking beer, suddenly, an ear-piercing alarm sounded in the base. Beep, beep, beep. Then, urgent shouts could be heard from the loudspeaker. Zombies are attacking the city. All hunters and psychokinesis immediately go to the northeast of the first line of defense. Mo Sure sighed. He couldn't even eat supper in peace. Then he shook his head and ignored it. According to his understanding in the past few days, there were many mutant beasts and zombies in the wilderness around Base C1. But at most, they were strong mutant zombies below level 3. And Base C2 had level 5 hunters and level 5 psychokinesis. There was no need for him to do anything. Thinking of this, he continued to eat and drink happily. At this time, in the northeast of Base C2, outside the first wall, there was already a large black mass of zombies gathered. Preliminary estimates showed that there were tens of thousands of zombies. Inside the wall, the hunter group had already gathered. They all had solemn expressions. Under the illumination of the searchlight on the sentry tower, they saw the zombies gathered on the opposite side. The total number was estimated to be 10,000. Among them, those standing in the back row had expressions that were obviously different from ordinary zombies. They were all strong mutant zombies. And the number of strong mutant zombies had reached a terrifying number of more than 1,000. This was equivalent to more than 1,000 hunters. Which base could have more than 1,000 hunters? It was already a lot to have 60 or 70 hunters. And in Base C2, there were only 63 hunters. Fortunately, there were more than 30 psychokinesis in Base C2. And there were more than 5,000 hunters. Clearly, this was going to be an extremely tragic battle. If they won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. If they lost, there wouldn't be many zombies left. As a hunter, the chief of the base personally came to the front line to command. His face was as still as water. Although they were facing an army, they did not panic at all. He commanded the hunting group in an orderly manner. But no one knew how heavy his heart was at this moment. In the past, when the zombies gathered to attack the city on a large scale, their scouts in the wild could detect some movements in advance. However, today, none of their scouts had returned with any news. This was enough to show that tonight's zombies were far stronger than before. They were so powerful that even the scouts couldn't send back any information. And because the scouts did not send back any information, their preparations were somewhat inadequate. So much so that they did not move the people to the underground shelters in advance. It was close to midnight. The light rain gradually turned into heavy rain. The rain poured down in torrents. From time to time, a bolt of lightning would appear in the sky, winding like a dragon. At a certain moment, a thick bolt of lightning tore through the night sky. Among the zombies, an 8-year-old lowly zombie girl slowly stood out. She was wearing a sky-blue princess dress and had a double ponytail. If one looked at her from behind, she was definitely a cute little lowly. But if one looked at her from the front, the left side of her face had been torn open and had been drooping. When she walked, the left side of her face was like a pig's ear, flapping up and down. Her grayish-white eyes stared at the wall in the distance under the lightning. She paused for a few seconds. Suddenly, she raised her right claw and opened her torn mouth. From her throat, she let out a shocking roar. Roar, roar. In the next moment, these tens of thousands of zombies all roared. Accompanied by this deafening roar, all the zombies surged toward the high wall together. On the sentry tower, the base chief saw this and held the giant sword in his hand tightly. He shouted, "Fire! Da-da-da, da-da-da, whoosh, boom." Tongues of fire were constantly spurting out from the shooting holes on the high wall. Those ordinary zombies were suddenly swept to the ground one after another. Their flesh and blood were blown away by the rockets. However, the number of ordinary zombies was close to 10,000. They could not eliminate nearly 10,000 zombies in a short period of time. What's more, there were more than 1,000 strong mutated zombies. Artillery fire could not do anything to them. The distance between the strong mutated zombies and the high wall was quickly closing. On the sentry tower, the base chief ordered loudly, "Psychokinesis, prepare to attack with flying knives. Every psychokinesis, leave a hunter beside them to protect them. The rest of the hunters, go outside the wall and stop the zombies from attacking the wall. Be careful not to leave the range of your telekinesis." Soon, more than 30 hunters jumped down from the wall and lined up outside the wall. After a while, the flood of zombies collided with these 30 hunters. On the wall, nearly 400 flying knives were like 400 scythes of the Grim Reaper, harvesting these zombies. Even if it was a strong mutated zombie, if it was accidentally hit in the head by these flying knives, it would be killed in one blow. And the lowly female zombie stared at the base chief on the sentry tower. In her grayish-white eyes, there was a fierce light. Like a beast that chose people to devour. At the same time in the base, urgent words were constantly coming out from the loudspeaker. "Emergency in the northeast, all positions, please send soldiers to support as soon as possible. I repeat, support as soon as possible." Mo Sure used his telekinesis to explore. In the heavy rain, he saw that the surrounding patrols had already headed to the northeast. At the same time, the zombie hunters, patrols, and soldiers in other positions also rushed to the northeast. Mo Sure still did not move. All residents, move to the nearest emergency shelter as soon as possible. All residents, move to the nearest emergency shelter as soon as possible. Mo Sure could detect that in the apartment building, almost everyone had already rushed to the nearest underground shelter. He still did not move and continued to eat his roasted chicken. At the same time, at the entrance of the underground shelter more than 700 meters away from the apartment building, people fled to the underground shelter as if they were crazy. Among the crowd, there were cries of children and women from time to time. Although everyone knew that the zombies were getting stronger and stronger, human hunters and psychokinesis were not getting stronger as fast as the zombies. Humans seemed to be heading towards extinction. However, when this day really came, they still could not believe it. Crack! In the sky, a bolt of lightning zigzagged across. Under this bolt of lightning, a figure suddenly appeared at the entrance of the shelter without warning. The soldier in charge of commanding at the entrance was shocked when he saw this figure. He quickly shone a flashlight over. In the heavy rain, the left side of the figure's face was badly mutilated. On the right side of his face, there wasn't even any flesh and blood, only white bones remained. The strangest thing was that this guy was actually grinning, as if he was laughing. Chapter 101. The hundreds of people at the entrance saw this scene and immediately fled in panic. Zombies! There are zombies! Run! The already chaotic entrance of the fallout shelter became even more chaotic. No one would have thought that when the zombie army besieged the city, Almost everyone in the zombie hunter group was transferred to the northeast to defend, and zombies would suddenly appear in the rear. Zombies were not scary, but zombies with culture were scary. Even zombies knew the art of war. And this zombie, with a smart look and a mocking smile on its mouth. It was obvious that it was a strong mutated zombie. The soldier with the flashlight saw this, although he was panicking. But at this time, he was not thinking about himself, but the thousands of people here. Although he was a little panicked, he still raised his gun and aimed at the smiling zombie. The smiling zombie did not pay attention to the soldier at all. One in each hand, it grabbed a woman and a little girl next to it, turned around, and quickly jumped away. The soldier was stunned. All the zombies he had seen before, whether ordinary zombies, mutated zombies, or strong mutated zombies. When they saw humans, they were like hungry wolves seeing lambs, and they directly pounced on them to tear them apart. But this zombie was not right. It did not bite the woman and the little girl. Instead, it grabbed the woman and the little girl, turned around, and fled into the darkness. What was going on? At the same time, several more zombies appeared near the fallout shelter. Each of them was a strong mutated zombie. They were all the same as the previous zombie. They did not fight with these soldiers. Instead, they grabbed the people next to them, turned around, and jumped into the darkness. In the apartment building next to the zombie hunter group's headquarters. Naturally, Wuxia was able to clearly detect all of this. In fact, when he set up the virtual sentry tower, his telekinesis spread out to a radius of 5 kilometers, and he had already detected that there were strong mutated zombies lurking outside the southwest city wall. Wuxia felt a little strange in his heart. The behavior of these zombies was very strange. Ordinary zombies could not help but roar when they saw humans. These zombies could clearly see the humans on the sentry tower by the high wall, but they could suppress their impulse and quietly lurk in the trees. It was very abnormal. Wuxia did not make a move, because he wanted to wait and see what they were going to do. They had been lurking there for more than 3 hours. When the battle on the high wall in the northeast began, the nearby hunters, patrols, and corpse hunting teams all went there to reinforce. These more than 100-strong mutated zombies, under the cover of the heavy rain, jumped over the wall. They went all the way to the shelter. At this moment, an even stranger scene occurred. Those thousands of humans were clearly right in front of them, but they forcefully suppressed the urge to bite down. Instead, each zombie grabbed 2 humans, turned around and fled into the darkness. Were they going to capture them and use them as food for the winter? Just as Wuxia was puzzled, a zombie saw Wuxia's figure from the window. With a roar, he leaped towards Wuxia's window. However, as soon as he jumped into the air, bang! A muffled sound was heard. Its entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. If this zombie could dream, he would never have imagined that he would die in the hands of an ordinary human being in such a way. Wuxia sighed. Memory plunder could only plunder human memories. But it could not work on zombies. Otherwise, by plundering the memories of these zombies, he should be able to know why they took these humans back. At the same time, within a radius of 1 kilometer, a strong mutated zombie, holding 2 women, had just passed through the window of a house. His body made a muffled sound. Bang! It was like the sound of a cannon in the water. The 2 women were suddenly thrown to the ground. The 2 knew they were going to die and were terrified. There was even a woman who had long been paralyzed with fear. The other woman still had some strength. She did not know why the zombie suddenly threw her to the ground. She looked up. The night was dark, and the rain poured down. Nothing could be seen. She did not have time to think and quickly got up to escape. Her heart was extremely flustered. She took a deep step and a shallow step. She fell to the ground from time to time. She had already foreseen that she would not be able to run a few steps before being caught by the claw. However, she had already escaped 50 meters away. There was still no movement. She escaped another 100 meters. There was still no movement behind her. She felt the darkness and escaped hundreds of meters away. Under the lightning, she saw the warehouse door in front of her open. She quickly hid in and closed the warehouse door. She did not understand what had happened. Did the zombie just let her go like this? At the same time, the other woman finally slowly came back to her senses. There was a trace of strength in her body. Crack! A bolt of lightning flashed. With the reflection of the lightning, she did not see any trace of zombies around her. She did not understand what had happened. Why did the zombie suddenly let her go? But this was not the time to be entangled. Using the last bit of strength in her body, she struggled to get up and ran forward, one step at a time. At the same time, a similar scene was happening to more than 200 people. Bang 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 bang. More than 100 zombies burst into more than 100 clouds of blood mist. With the current strength of Mo Shi's telekinesis, these zombies were directly disintegrated. There were no broken limbs, no broken bodies. Their flesh and bones, under the effect of Mo Shi's telekinesis, all burst into particles that were not visible to the naked eye. Only when they were together could a cloud of blood mist be seen. The more than 200 people who were caught felt that they were suddenly thrown to the ground. When they got up, the zombies were nowhere to be seen. They did not have time to investigate further and got up to find a place to hide. At the same time, on the wall in the southeast corner, one of the zombies was running away. This was an 8-year-old lowly zombie. She had a double ponytail and was wearing a sky blue princess dress. Although she was small, her strength had reached level 5 strong mutant zombie. She was the strongest among all the zombies who had sneaked into the base. But at this time, she seemed to be panicking. His grayish-white eyes were filled with astonishment. She thought that a large number of zombies attacking the city at the northeast wall would attract attention. She could easily capture a large number of humans with these hundreds of strong mutant zombies. But the result was, when she was about to succeed, she saw the more than 100 strong mutant zombies that she brought, almost at the same time, all burst into a cloud of blood mist. No minced meat. No broken bones. Only blood mist. She had never seen such a method. Even her leader, the level 10 strong mutant zombie, could not do it at all. This was enough to show that there was a hidden powerhouse in the human base. What a despicable human. The only thing she could do at this time was to escape. She could feel that the reason why she was not dead yet was that she was outside the attack range of the hidden powerhouse. If the hidden powerhouse chased after her, she would have no chance to escape at all. So she used a speed of 150 meters per second, shuttling quickly in the heavy rain. However, could she escape? Chapter 102. The night was dark and heavy rain was pouring down. In this rainy night, a little girl was running at high speed. The little girl was about 8 years old and had 2 ponytails. She was wearing a sky blue princess dress. From the front, she looked like a beautiful little loli. But there was a bloody wound behind her neck. Through the wound, one could see the cervical vertebra inside. As her head turned left and right, the cervical vertebra was also constantly turning. It looked exceptionally terrifying. However, at this moment, the little lowly zombie was very panicked. As she ran forward, she would look back from time to time. In the past, she had chased humans countless times. When humans were chased by her, they were like this. As they ran, they would look back from time to time. This time, it was her turn. Her gray-white pupils were filled with shock and fear. Soon, she had already passed through the rain and escaped for 2 kilometers. With a leap, she easily jumped over the 3rd wall. She ran forward for another kilometer and crossed the 2nd wall. Then, she ran for another kilometer at high speed. She was not far from the 1st wall. She looked back. The hidden powerhouse did not chase after her. She sighed in relief. Under the 1st wall, there were more than 10 soldiers. She did not care about them at all. As long as she jumped over the wall and entered the wilderness outside, she would be safe. Crack! A bolt of lightning cut through the night sky. She was as fast as lightning and stepped over the heads of the soldiers. She jumped onto the wall. As long as she took another step forward, she would be able to escape from the wall. However, in the next moment, whoosh! A black light seemed to be faster than lightning. It instantly cut through the sky and passed through the rain. Chee! It hit the head of the little lowly zombie and pierced through her mouth. The huge force sent the little lowly zombie flying for 100 meters. Bang! It was directly nailed to a white poplar tree that was more than a meter thick outside. Just like that, the little lowly zombie faced the tree trunk and hung 10 meters above the ground. It was as if a cute little girl was playing a game of princess kissing prince with the tree. However, on the back of the girl's head, there was a black spear that was more than a meter long. A moment later, the black spear seemed to be decomposed into gas by the rain and disappeared. The girl's body slowly slid down along the tree trunk. He brushed a bloody mark on the bark. Inside the wall, a soldier was shining a flashlight on the top of the wall. The soldier next to him asked, "Is there something wrong with him?" The soldier was puzzled. "I think I saw a girl standing on the wall." Another soldier scolded, "Did you shit your brains out when you were taking a dump? Which girl can jump up a wall that's more than 10 meters high? And in this terrible weather, which girl would run to the top of the wall?" "Are you crazy?" The soldier said, "That's a mutant zombie, a strong mutant zombie." "Oh right, there seems to be a long thorn growing from the back of her head." The other soldiers shook their heads. "I think there's something wrong with your head." The soldier shone his flashlight on the top of the wall but saw nothing. He shook his head himself. It was just a flash of lightning that he suddenly saw it. The time was too short, so he couldn't see it clearly. Perhaps he was hallucinating. At the same time, on the second floor of the apartment building next to the hunting group, Mo Sure retracted his gaze from the window. He sighed. "It's raining heavily." Then he went back to the table and picked up the remaining half bottle of beer. He gulped it down. Burp. He let out a long burp. Northeast of the base, outside the wall, the zombies had already gained the upper hand. The hunting group lost 5 hunters. Psychokinesis also had one person's arm scratched by a zombie. Although the arm had been cut off, it was basically useless. He would soon become a zombie. As for the hunters, more than 100 people died and more than 300 were injured. Fighting with zombies, being injured was equivalent to death. At this time, only 200 of the strong mutant zombies were lost. On the sentry tower, the base chief's face was as solemn as the dark rainy night. Tonight's battle, even if they could win in the end, more than half of the hunting group would be killed. At this time, in the wilderness outside the high wall, a roar suddenly sounded. Roar, roar. All the zombies heard this roar. They suddenly turned around and retreated into the wilderness. In just over a minute, the nearly 10,000 zombies had all retreated. Only corpses were left on the ground. Everyone was stunned. What was going on? When zombies attacked cities, they basically didn't care about the cost. In the past few sieges, even if they did not have any advantage, they would fight until the last zombie fell. But today, they clearly had the advantage. Why did they suddenly retreat? Hao Ren jumped a few times from outside the wall and came to the sentry tower. He said to the base chief, "Chief, why did these bastards suddenly retreat?" The base chief shook his head. There must be something fishy about this. But he could not figure it out for a while. At this time, a soldier under the sentry tower reported, "Chief, zombies sneaked into the base." Hearing this, the chief's face suddenly changed. He finally understood why these zombies suddenly retreated. It was a diversion. Thinking of this, he immediately roared, "Leave half of the hunters and psychokinesis guards. The rest, come back with me." Hao Ren's face also changed when he heard this. He cursed, "These bastards, how dare they do this?" Then, he jumped down from the sentry tower and was about to return to the base. Behind him, Xianxia also followed. "Hao Ren, I'll go too." Hao Ren did not say anything. He pulled Xianxia up and ran forward quickly. In the apartment building, Mo Sure saw that it was already past 12 o'clock. He said in his mind, "System, sign in." The system's voice quickly came, "Frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in event. Kill the strong mutated zombie who abducted humans. Sign in reward. Memory plunder upgraded." Looking carefully at the skill description, "Frowny face memory plunder. Use psychic power to plunder the memory of any creature." Note, the brain of a creature whose memory is plundered will be damaged to a certain extent. In serious cases, it will cause mental retardation. Use with caution. Mo Sure looked at the skill description and couldn't help but chuckle. The previous memory plunder could only plunder the memory of humans. But in the base, it was not very useful. Zombies and mutant beasts knew more about the wilderness than anyone else. Previously, he was still worried about how to obtain a large amount of information about the wilderness. But he didn't expect the system to upgrade memory plunder so quickly. With this skill, the next step would be to start with the zombies and mutated beasts to find out the situation in the dragon ruins. Only after figuring out the situation there would he have the confidence to make a move. Otherwise, If he went rashly and there was a super mutated zombie there, wouldn't he be sending himself to death for nothing? After doing all this, Mo sure yawned. He closed his eyes in satisfaction. Not long after, snoring sounds could be heard. However, not long after, the door was suddenly knocked open with a bang. A black shadow instantly jumped into the room. Mo Sure, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly opened his eyes. Chapter 103. Mo Sure had just fallen asleep when the door was suddenly kicked open. A figure suddenly jumped into the room. Mo Sure suddenly opened his eyes. The figure stopped in the middle of the room and said loudly, Mo Sure, Mo Sure. It turned out to be Hao Ren. Mo Sure replied, I'm here. Hao Ren strode into the bedroom and was relieved to see that Mo Sure was fine. Then he laughed. You're so relaxed. Didn't you hear the alarm in the base? Mo Sure yawned and got up. I'm too tired today. I slept too soundly. Hao Ren was speechless. Just stay in the bedroom and don't run around. A zombie broke in. Mo Sure nodded. Okay. Hao Ren said a few words and quickly left. Mo Sure closed the door and went back to sleep. As for the others, they were naturally not in the mood to sleep. Most of them had already moved to the underground shelter. Even those who didn't enter the underground shelter were hiding in their own houses and didn't dare to breathe. But what made them feel strange was that the base chief led the hunting group to search in the heavy rain for most of the night. But they couldn't find any zombies. It wasn't until dawn that the heavy rain finally stopped. The sun was shining brightly. The world that had been washed by the heavy rain for a night was exceptionally clear. The hunting group found some clues at this time. They found more than 100 pieces of clothes. As for other clues, they found nothing. The base chief gathered all the people who were caught last night. First, he gave them a physical examination to confirm that they were not infected with the virus. Then he questioned them one by one. A woman recalled the situation last night. She seemed to still have some lingering fear. She said in a trembling voice, At that time, I was caught by the zombie and kept running in the rain. But I don't know why, it suddenly threw me on the ground. I quickly got up and ran. I thought that I would be caught again after a few steps, but I didn't expect that it didn't catch up with me until I ran to the warehouse. Another man recalled the situation last night and said, I was about the same. The zombie suddenly threw me down. I looked around, but it was dark and I couldn't see anything. I tried to run a few steps, but didn't see the zombie chasing after me, so I quickly hid in the training room. What the others said was basically the same. From the moment they were thrown away, no one had seen a single zombie. It was as if those zombies had all evaporated in an instant. But what's with these scraps of cloth? The base chief frowned as he looked at the tattered pieces of clothing in front of him. It looked like there was a bomb in the zombies' bodies that suddenly exploded. However, no matter how much he exploded, he should have at least found some flesh and bones. However, even after searching the entire neighborhood, they could not find even a single piece of meat or bone. This puzzled everyone in the base. Now, it seemed that the zombies in the northeast had launched a large-scale attack just to attract the attention of the base. It was so that the zombies could easily sneak into the base and capture the humans. But why did these powerful mutated zombies suddenly disappear? There were also pieces of cloth left on the ground. No matter how good a person was at reasoning, they would not be able to figure it out even if they scratched their heads. At the same time, on the sentry tower by the wall in the southeast corner of the base, a zombie hunter was using binoculars to observe the outside of the wall. At a certain moment, his eyes suddenly focused. He saw that 100 meters away from the wall, under a big tree, a little girl was lying there. The zombie hunter's heart skipped a beat. He took a closer look. He saw that there seemed to be a hole in the back of the girl's head. He quickly reported this discovery to his superiors. Not long after, a few hunters came to the outside of the wall. They brought the little girl's body back. At this time, everyone realized that this was not a little girl, but a little zombie. When the lowly zombie's corpse was brought into the encirclement, a soldier suddenly yelled out, "It's her!" Everyone looked at the soldier. The soldier strode to the little zombie's body. He turned his head back with some excitement and said to the other soldiers, "Do you remember that I told you last night that I seemed to see a little girl standing on the wall? It's her." Hearing this, the soldiers were also surprised. Yes, we didn't believe it at that time. the soldier said again. At that time, although it was just a flash of lightning and I didn't see it clearly, I saw that she was wearing this. And at that time, I saw a long thorn more than 1 meter long on the back of her head, and she was about to jump out. From the looks of it, it shouldn't be some sort of thorn. Instead, it should be something that pierced her head. Hearing this, the hunters hurriedly reported this to their superiors. In the end, the chief of the base received the news and rushed over. He invited a few experts to analyze the holes left on the big tree outside, the holes on the little zombie's head, and combined with what the soldier said, they roughly reconstructed the situation at that time. However, the experts were somewhat in disbelief. The chief of the base saw that something was wrong. He asked, "What's wrong?" An expert pushed his glasses and said, "Chief, we don't dare to say anything." The chief of the base said, "If you have something to say, just say it." The expert with glasses glanced at the other experts, and the other experts nodded. The expert with glasses then said, "According to the situation at the scene, combined with the soldier's description, we speculated that when the zombie climbed over the wall and wanted to jump out of the base, someone threw a javelin from about 5 kilometers away and pierced through her head. Moreover, the huge inertia of the javelin carried it 100 meters away and nailed it to the tree outside. But the javelin was pulled out later. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. This was too ridiculous. A hunter shook his head. Throwing a javelin from 5 kilometers away? Although any hunter can do it, who would have the accuracy to do it? Another hunter added, "Besides, the javelin flew for 5 kilometers and carried a zombie for 100 meters. How much strength does it take to do that? Even the level 5 hunter Hao Ren can't do that." The other experts nodded. The expert with glasses pushed his glasses again and said, "That's why we didn't dare to say anything. Because we think that this result is too ridiculous. But according to the analysis of the scene, it was like that at that time." The chief of the base frowned. At some point, he suddenly remembered what Xianxia said before. When Xianxia and the others came back, they reported that they always felt that there was a strong person ahead of them. This strong person killed a lot of zombies and mutated beasts along the way, but they didn't hear any sounds of fighting. Later, he specially ordered all the psychokinesis to secretly investigate the entire base several times. But they didn't find any strong person at all. But now, it seemed that there really was a mysterious strong person in the base. Chapter 104. While everyone in Base C2 was confused by what had happened last night, Lin Fan and the others were still in a daze. In the east of the base, more than 100 kilometers away, there was an abandoned city. This abandoned city was very different from other abandoned cities. Half of the buildings in the entire city were factories. But the most important difference was that the plants here were not green, but a faint blood-red color. The weeds on the ground, the big trees by the road, and the vines hanging down from the roof were all a faint blood-red color. Under the sunlight, the entire city looked very strange. Before the outbreak of the virus, this was once an important industrial base. But who would have thought that this was the source of the virus outbreak? The X2 virus started here and swept the world. At this time in a factory, hundreds of zombies were standing in the open space of the factory. Among them was a little lowly zombie with the left side of her face drooping. A zombie with a beard stood on the corridor of the second floor, looking down at the more than 100 zombies. On the shelf next to him, there was a strange owl about 2 meters tall squatting. The owl had no skin on its whole body. The bloody flesh was exposed to the air. A pair of wings was like a bat, tucked behind its back. The bearded zombie let out a roar from his throat. "You all deserve to die. How could you fail?" The other zombies did not dare to say a word. Only the little lowly zombie responded with a roar from her throat. "Leader, we don't know what happened. We have attracted all the attention in the base as you ordered. My sister brought other zombies and successfully sneaked into the base. But I suddenly received news that my sister was killed. I saw from afar that she was nailed to a tree by a black javelin. Despicable humans, despicable reptiles." Speaking of this, the little lowly zombie's gray-white eyes showed a hint of hatred. The bearded zombie roared, "You mean in this base, there is a human whose strength is far stronger than a level 5 strong mutated zombie?" The little lowly zombie roared in a low voice in response, "It's very possible." At this time, the mutated owl next to him turned its blood-red eyes. It made a low hiss in its throat. Leader, if there really is such a powerhouse among the humans, it will be very troublesome. We have to find a way to deal with him. The bearded zombie nodded. Do you have any ideas? The variant owl said in a hoarse voice. This is the source of the virus. All the zombies and mutated beasts here are much stronger than those in other places. If we can set up a trap and lure that human expert over. The bearded zombie pondered for a moment and roared. You think of a way. The mutant owl flapped its wings and screeched. Yes, Chief. In Base C2. Unable to find out the whole story for the time being, the leader could only give up for now. Everyone returned to their posts and continued working. However, in the leader's heart, he was secretly guessing who that mysterious expert was. Over the next few days, the materials for the base's corpse farm were almost ready. Under Mo Shi's guidance, they began to build the corpses. Hao Ren also brought a few hunters to help. With the help of the zombie hunters, their progress was very fast. In a short span of 5 days, the entire hunting ground had been built. Later, they caught a few zombies and brought back a dozen pigs. Mo Shi brought a few disciples and taught them how to feed the zombies and what to pay attention to. In fact, as long as they were brave, careful, and had hands, they could feed the zombies. Therefore, these disciples quickly learned how to feed the zombies. In this way, Mo Shi became the leader of the corpse farm. However, as the leader, he was completely a hands-off boss. Almost everything was handed over to his disciples to handle. He himself was very free. He either strolled around the base or lay on the recliner in the yard to bask in the sun. At the same time, the laboratory on the other side was also being built. However, the construction of the laboratory was not as smooth as the corpse farm. The precision instruments needed by the laboratory were all rare goods nowadays. There was also a shortage of researchers. In desperation, the leader of the base could only send a few helicopters to other bases to see if he could borrow the instruments and talents. Mo Shi did not care much about these. He was secretly planning in his heart. Ordinary zombies did not have any memories. He had to catch a few mutated zombies back to inquire about the situation in the dragon ruins. On this day, Mo Shi received a piece of news from Hao Ren. Last night, 2 people were taken away by strong mutated zombies. Hao Ren sighed and said, You have to close the doors and windows when you sleep at night. Mo Shi joked, That is a strong mutated zombie. What's the use of closing the doors and windows? Hao Ren smiled bitterly. It's better than being seen by a strong mutated zombie. In short, you have to be careful at night. For the next 5 days, although the base strengthened its security. However, there were strong mutated zombies in every corner of the base. However, these strong mutated zombies did not come in groups. They acted alone. The strength of a strong mutated zombie was equivalent to a hunter. With such strength, acting alone at night, it was basically impossible to be discovered. This also made the people in the base feel uneasy. Every day, they were on tenterhooks. Everyone was worried that they would be suddenly taken away at night. Compared to this, the leader of the base was more worried about what these zombies were going to do with so many humans. Moreover, these strong mutated zombies were almost treating the base as their backyard, and they could enter and leave at will. What if one day they did not just take away 1 or 2 people, but directly started to infect? The consequences would be unimaginable. Moving the people to the underground shelter was of course a way. However, the underground shelter's capacity was limited. At most, it could only accommodate 1/10 of the humans in the base. What about the remaining 9/10? Because of this, the leader of the base had been so worried that he had not slept for a few days. On this day, it was night again. The leader of the base had sent out all the members of the hunting group to patrol various positions in the base. However, they did not expect that after the members of the hunting group left, the area around the base was empty. Around 3 o'clock that night, the moon was not bright, but the stars were bright. The light wind swayed the leaves. A level 4 strong mutated zombie quietly approached the hunter group. He faced the wind and stretched his nose. He could smell the scent of many humans in the apartment building next to the hunting group. A hint of excitement flashed through his grayish-white pupils. Then he planned to break into a room on the first floor. However, at this moment, the level 4 strong mutated zombie suddenly felt that something was wrong. When he turned his head, he saw that a human was standing behind him. Chapter 105. The level 4 strong mutant zombie was about to jump into the apartment building to catch the person. But at a certain moment, its footsteps suddenly stopped. It suddenly turned around. It saw that behind it, there was a human standing there unknowingly. Its eyes suddenly flashed with a touch of horror. As a level 4 strong mutant zombie, its perception was also very strong. Not to mention humans, even if a flea appeared within 10 meters of it, it would be able to sense it easily. But at this time, this human quietly appeared behind it, and it actually did not feel anything. If it did not have a sense of danger in its heart, it would not have known that this person appeared. It could be seen that this human strength was far beyond its own. Thinking of this, the strong mutant zombie did not hesitate. It turned around and wanted to escape. However, just as it turned around, its mind suddenly went blank. In the next moment, its eyes turned from lively to dull, as if it was an idiot without any intelligence. At this time, except for the fact that its body was far stronger than ordinary zombies, and its speed and strength were far superior to ordinary zombies, in other aspects, it was no different from an ordinary zombie. At this time, Wuxia sensed that not far away, there was a level 4 hunter from the body hunters coming over. With a thought, he activated Zombie Summon. He issued an order to the zombie. The zombie suddenly roared, turned around the corner, and rushed towards the member of the body hunters. However, without self-consciousness, the strong mutant zombie, which only had a bloodthirsty instinct, was no match for the level 4 hunter. In a few rounds, it was defeated by the level 4 hunter. Wuxia thought to himself, this zombie summon is not bad. After obtaining this skill, he almost never used it. Now, he was just trying out this skill. At this time, the level 4 hunter killed the strong mutant zombie. The movement here also attracted the attention of the others. They all rushed over here. This was the first time they successfully killed a strong mutant zombie in the base. The other members of the hunter group congratulated the hunter. Amazing, my brother. You are the first to kill a strong mutant zombie in the base. Who said that our base is the backyard of their strong mutant zombies? Didn't we just kill one? The hunter nodded and responded to the crowd. However, he was secretly muttering in his heart. Although this zombie's speed and strength had reached the level of a level 4 strong mutation, it was still a level 4 mutant. But he still felt that something was off. He took him down in a few moves. Under normal circumstances, this was simply impossible. However, he only muttered in his heart and did not say it out loud. At this moment, Wuxia had already returned to his room. In his mind, he was looking through the memories that he had just plundered. The memory plunder skill could be used on humans, zombies, and mutant beasts. It was quite useful. From these memories, Wuxia learned that there was a city full of blood-red plants 100 kilometers away. That was the origin of the virus. He also knew that the strongest person there was a level 10 mutated zombie. Other than that, there were also several level 9 mutated zombies. More than a dozen level 8 mutated zombies. As for the strong mutant zombies below level 7, there were more than 3,000 of them. And the number of mutated zombies reached more than 100,000. The remaining 2 million were all ordinary zombies. When Wuxia discovered this, he couldn't help but feel a little surprised. The strength of the zombies in this city was actually so strong. What made him puzzled was that the strength of these zombies could easily break through the C2 base. Why hadn't they made a move yet? Adhering to the principle of not thinking about it if he couldn't figure it out, Wuxia no longer bothered about this. What he thought in his heart was, according to the information he had obtained now, there were no super mutated zombies in that city. Then things would be easy to handle. Destroying the zombies in this city would give him tens of millions of evolution points. Then, if he continued to head east, not far away would be the Dragon Ruins. He would definitely be able to sign in and get good things in that city. Wuxia couldn't help but look forward to it. However, it was obvious that he couldn't go tonight. He had just checked too many memories of that strong mutated zombie, and his head was a little swollen. He should wait until tomorrow night to adjust to his peak state. Thinking of this, Wuxia didn't sign in immediately. Instead, he planned to leave this signing opportunity for tomorrow night. That day, Wuxia slept for almost half a day. Around 10 o'clock at night, he changed into the chameleon camouflage uniform. The color of his body changed into the same black as the night. The camouflage uniform also turned black. When he jumped out of the window and entered the night, his whole person blended into the night. Soon, he leaped over 3 walls. With Mo Shi's current strength, coupled with the chameleon camouflage uniform, even if he passed by 4 or 5 meters away from the soldiers guarding the wall, they would only feel a gust of wind blowing past. They couldn't see Mo Shi at all. After exiting the first wall and entering the forest, Mo Shi let go of his hands and feet and rushed towards the east. 1 kilometer per step. 100 kilometers. Only 100 steps. Of course, because of the difference in terrain, climbing mountains and wading through rivers, a little time was wasted. But even so, it only took him 5 minutes to reach. At this time, he arrived at the edge of the city. Under the support of the blood-red demon pupil, he looked towards the city. He saw that the entire city was shrouded in a thick corpse aura. The corpse aura was so thick that it could almost solidify. Before the outbreak of the virus X, there were 2 million people in this city. Obviously, these 2 million people had all been turned into zombies. However, Mo Shi didn't have the slightest fear of this. With his strength, he could do whatever he wanted in this city. He slowed down his footsteps. He entered the city from the highway toll station in the west. Around the toll station, there were more than a dozen zombies working as toll collectors. Like lonely ghosts, they wandered on the overgrown road. After more than 20 years, their clothes had long been weathered. Some only had a few pieces of cloth hanging on their bodies. Some of them were completely naked. Their greenish-black bodies were already shriveled like air-dried bacon. A few zombies were lying on the ground or sitting in the corner, motionless. They seemed to have been dead for a long time. When Mo Shi walked over, those zombies suddenly looked like wolves who had been hungry for more than 10 days and saw a lamb. They roared and pounced towards Mo Shi. Even the zombies who were lying on the ground and sitting in the corner of the room were not affected. At this time, they slowly got up and pounced towards Mo Shi. They looked very ferocious. However, when they were more than 10 meters away from Mo Shi, their bodies had already exploded. Bang 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 bang. They exploded into broken limbs and broken bodies on the ground. Soon, the movement here attracted other zombies not far away, and they all rushed here. In just more than 10 minutes, the surrounding zombies had reached more than 1,000. Mo Shi faced these more than 1,000 zombies and slowly moved forward. He spread out his telekinesis. All the zombies that came within 1,000 meters of him exploded. Bang 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 bang. Chapter 106. In the clear night sky, the stars were bright. Under this starry sky, in a city covered by blood-red plants, Mo Shi slowly moved forward. And his body was like a magnet. Tens of thousands of zombies were attracted to him from all directions, and they rushed towards him. Looking down from the sky, it would feel that Mo Shi was like a lonely boat surrounded by a flood. It would be destroyed in the blink of an eye. However, the reality was that when those zombies entered a radius of 1,000 meters, their bodies strangely exploded. Bang 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 bang. Whether it was ordinary zombies, mutated zombies, or strong mutated zombies. Without exception, all of them exploded into several pieces and flew far away. Looking down from the sky, one would see that Mo Shi's surroundings formed a huge circle with a radius of 1,000 meters. None of the zombies could enter the circle. The circle slowly moved forward. Behind it was a huge corpse belt that was 2,000 meters wide. This corpse belt was covered with broken limbs and body parts. It was like hell. Mo Shi did not shake these corpses into powder. After all, if that was the case, it would consume more energy than now. There were 2 million zombies in this city. If they were all shaken into powder, his telekinesis might not be able to hold on. Of course, he was also very cautious. Occasionally, he would let in a strong mutated zombie. Plunder their memories. To compare information. Thus, to prevent any negligence. In his mind, there was a constant notification: frowny face killed zombie, evolution points +1. Killed level 3 mutated zombie, evolution points +300. Killed level 2 strong mutated zombie, evolution points +2000. In the beginning, he was a little excited for a while. But as time passed, his mind was constantly refreshed. He was already numb. At the same time, at the top of a 13-story building in the center of the city, A bearded zombie and 5 other level 9 strong mutated zombies were watching all of this from afar. Their eyes were filled with shock. Beside them, a huge mutated owl flashed a cold light in its blood-red eyes. A level 9 mutant zombie roared in his throat, "Let's go! There is actually such a strong person among the humans." Another level 9 mutant zombie roared, "Let's go!" Previously, we said that we were going to attack the human base. Fortunately, the king did not send an order. Otherwise, it didn't continue, but the other mutated zombies knew what it meant. Indeed, if they had rashly attacked the base, they would probably be dead by now. The owl beside him screeched hoarsely and said, "Although this human is powerful, as long as we lure him to the blood pool, we can kill him." The bearded zombie withdrew his shocked gaze and nodded. "The blood pool is what we're relying on. Are you guys ready?" The mutant zombies nodded. "All right." The bearded zombie nodded. "Then let's go." Then he said to the mutant owl beside him, "You once said that he had killed a level 10 strong mutated zombie?" The owl said hoarsely, "Yes, Chief. But don't worry, the situation this time is different. This is where the virus originated. Here, the human strength would be weakened. The strength of the zombies and mutant beasts will be greatly enhanced." The bearded zombie nodded. "Yes, you should go too." The owl said respectfully, "Yes, Chief." Then a pair of bat-like wings stretched out, flapped them, and flew into the distance. When Mo Sure was moving forward, his speed was not fast at first. He would catch a strong mutated zombie from time to scout for information. A moment later, through the memory of a strong mutated zombie, he found a piece of news that made him slightly surprised. These zombies actually set up a trap to lure him to kill him. The reason why those strong mutated zombies went to the base every night to catch humans, one reason was that they did catch humans for other purposes. Another important reason was to lure him here. At this time in this city, these zombies had already set up a trap, waiting for him to jump in. However, Mo Sure had already investigated their plan clearly through the memory of this strong mutated zombie. He couldn't help but laugh. In the face of absolute strength, any conspiracy is a joke. After finding out everything he needed, he began to speed up. The speed of those zombies being killed also became faster and faster. The speed of the evolution points in his mind also became faster and faster. About 20 minutes later, he had already swept through half of the city. And at this time, those zombies seemed to have learned to be smart. Especially those strong mutated zombies. After they saw Mo Sure, they no longer blindly rushed forward. Instead, they fled to the foot of the mountain to the east of the city. Even hundreds of strong mutated zombies fled in that direction. Mo Sure couldn't help but laugh. They were clearly luring him to go there. "All right, since it's like this, then I'll do as you wish." A moment later, following these strong mutated zombies, he arrived at the foot of the mountain. At this time, Mo Sure looked at the evolution points in his mind. He had already gained more than 10 million evolution points from the killing just now. Now the total evolution points had already reached 73 million. As long as he eliminated all the zombies in the city, reaching 20 million would not be a problem. He estimated that as long as he reached 100 million evolution points, the system should be able to upgrade again. He shifted his attention from his mind to the outside world. At the foot of the mountain, there were more than 30 factories. Mo Sure did not immediately go in. Instead, he took out the virtual sentry tower and placed it next to him. Just as the virtual sentry tower was set up, an urgent alarm sounded. Beep 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 beep. However, Mo Sure only used his telekinesis to scan once and did not pay attention to the alarm. Under his telekinesis investigation those 30 factories, in each courtyard, there was a blood pool with a diameter of 50 meters. Around these blood pools, there were more than 3,000 strong mutated zombies, all of them jumping in. Seeing this, Mo Sure smiled indifferently. More than 3,000 strong mutated zombies. Even with the bonus of the blood pool, it was impossible for them to break through to super mutated zombies. As long as they could not break through to super mutated zombies, they were all ants in front of him. No, they should all be evolution points. Thinking of this, he took a step forward and arrived at a factory. He saw in the blood pool in the factory courtyard. There were about 100 zombies. However, at this time, these zombies' bodies and faces were covered with finger-thick blood-red arms. From a distance, These blood-red arms were like blood vessels, crawling all over these zombies' bodies. And these zombies' bodies quickly became taller and bigger. Soon, almost every zombie reached a height of more than 20 meters. Their strength had basically reached level 8 or even level 9 strong mutated zombies. Among them, there were even a few strong mutated zombies that reached a height of 50 meters. Their strength had already reached level 10 strong mutated zombies. Mo Shi used his telekinesis to scan. In all the blood pools, all 3,000 strong mutated zombies had reached level 8 and above. There were also more than 30 50-meter tall level 10 strong mutated zombies. In addition, there were also more than 1,000 strong mutated beasts in the blood pool. The strength of each strong mutated beast, under the support of the blood pool, also reached level 8 and above. If such a force wanted to crush those bases, none of them would be able to last more than 10 minutes. Chapter 107. Strong mutant zombies and mutant beasts above level 8 were equivalent to hunters above level 8. Any one of them could give any base a headache. But now, there were more than 4,000 of them gathered here. These more than 4,000 strong mutant zombies and mutant beasts, each of them mutated in an extremely strange way. Some of their faces and buttocks were in opposite positions. Some of their heads were big meatballs with 7 or 8 human faces inside. Some had a wolf's body and a human's head. There was even one with a pouch on its stomach. Little zombies kept jumping out of the pouch. Every little zombie was a level 5 strong mutant zombie. Mo Shi opened his eyes. In addition to these, there were more than 30 level 10 strong mutant zombies and more than 10 level 10 strong mutant beasts. Every one of them was 50 meters tall or long. Their faces were ferocious and extremely ugly. Among them, the strongest mutant beast was already more than 80 meters tall. There were 2 thick horns about 10 meters long on its head. There was a huge bloody hole in its chest. Mo Shi's blood demon's pupil saw that the corpse aura on its body was the heaviest. Obviously, its strength should have already reached level 10 strong mutated zombie. Now, with the support of the blood pool, it had reached the limit of level 10 strong mutant zombie. Only one step, it could become a super mutant zombie. Right now, Mo Shi was facing more than 4,000 hunters who were level 8 and above. It was certain that in the face of such a terrifying force, there was no hunter group in the world that could resist it. However, at this time, Mo Shi was facing such a terrifying existence alone. Roar! The 80-meter-tall zombie roared. The rest of the 3,000 strong mutant zombies, as if they had received an order, rushed toward Mo Shi together. The 1,000 strong mutant beasts also made a variety of hoarse, loud, and sharp roars. They rushed toward the apocalypse. The surrounding factory buildings, walls, and the units across the street. Everything under their feet was like a piece of paper, collapsing one after another. Facing these strong mutant zombies that were supported by the blood pool, Mo Shi's telekinesis couldn't tear them into pieces. It couldn't explode their heads. He shook his head slightly and sighed. Since that's the case, I'll use this move. Then he closed his eyes. The immense power of a level 10 telekinesis spread out brazenly. Almost instantaneously, his telekinesis enveloped every strong mutant beast and zombie. Moreover, it wasn't just a shroud. His telekinesis seemed to have a spirituality. After enveloping the bodies of these zombies and mutant beasts, it quickly moved around their bodies, looking for their weaknesses. A level 10 strong mutated zombie, whose cervical vertebra was almost cut off by a human with a knife. Although it had been strengthened by the blood pool, there was still a small gap on its neck. At the same time, its foot had been fractured. Mo Shi's telekinesis quickly found these 2 weaknesses. In the next moment, he exerted force in several directions. Rip! This level 10 mutant zombie was torn into pieces in an instant. At the same time, around Mo Shi, the remaining 3,000 strong mutant zombies and 1,000 strong mutant beasts were also experiencing the same thing. Rip, 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 at almost the same time. They were all torn apart, including the 80-meter-tall strong mutant zombie. Even all the trees, stones, and factories within a radius of 1,000 meters were torn into pieces. Flesh and blood accompanied by dust flew all over the sky. What was even more abnormal was that the ground within a radius of 1,000 meters was torn apart inch by inch. As for those blood pools, naturally, they couldn't escape the fate of being torn apart. The blood in the blood pools flowed along the cracks and quickly flowed away. The thousands of small arms in the blood pools that were like blood vessels also quickly retracted back to the ground. Tear of Doomsday. The power of a tear was actually so terrifying. In the face of Tear of Doomsday, there was nothing that couldn't be solved with a tear. The only way to avoid it was to have a stronger telekinesis than Mo Sure. But now on Earth, was there any creature stronger than Mo Sure's telekinesis? The answer was no. So, from this point of view, Mo Sure could be said to be invincible at this time. At the top of a building in the distance, the mutant owl's eyes were originally cold, and it had been paying attention to Mo Sure's every move. It seemed to have seen that Mo Sure was about to be torn into pieces by the more than 4,000 mutant creatures. However, at this moment, its blood-red eyes were filled with shock. Was this human already so strong? He directly used his telekinesis to tear apart the more than 4,000 strong mutant creatures that had been strengthened by the blood pool. Even the trees, stones, and buildings were torn apart. Even the ground was torn apart with cracks. This human was simply more beastly than us beasts. Thinking of this, it didn't dare to stay for even a second longer. It flapped a pair of bat-like wings and was about to fly into the distance. However, at this moment, whoosh, puff, a ray of black light instantly attacked. It directly pierced through the mutant owl's head. Then, he brought the mutated owl over 100 meters and nailed it to the roof of another building. A moment later, Mo Sure's figure suddenly appeared beside the mutant owl's corpse. Previously, he had noticed a corpse aura on the roof of the distant building. Although this corpse aura wasn't considered strong, it was only a level 1 mutant beast. But it gave him a sense of familiarity. It seemed that he had seen this corpse aura at the broken bridge at the dam outside the C1 base. Later, when he was at the C9 base, he also saw this corpse aura. Now, it was the third time he had seen it. Then, he took a closer look and found that it was a mutant owl. He immediately used the Sky Splitter Dragon Spear to kill it. At this moment, he came to the mutant owl's corpse and used his telekinesis to carefully examine it. He found that there seemed to be something wrong with the mutant owl's heart. It was clearly an owl, but it had a human heart. The heart was as shriveled as air-dried bacon. After carefully examining it for a moment, he couldn't find anything. He shook his head. He used his telekinesis. Bang! The owl's corpse exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Including the shriveled heart, it also exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Then, he stayed here for a full 5 minutes. Seeing that nothing strange happened, he rubbed his temples that were swollen due to the excessive consumption of telekinesis. He leaped and jumped in the direction of the remaining zombies. However, there was nothing strange about the owl, but there was something strange about the 80-meter-tall zombie. The flesh and blood in its body wriggled. Its bones were also constantly cracking. After a moment, it actually gathered into a strong mutant zombie that was more than 20 meters tall. Then, it jumped out of the previous corpse and hurriedly fled to the east. Mo Sure, who was cleaning up the zombies, detected this. However, he only glanced in that direction and didn't pay attention to it anymore. Obviously, after the zombie got out of the corpse, it should have gone to the dragon ruins. It just so happened that he was going to the dragon ruins later. He would let it run for a few kilometers first. Chapter 108. For the time being, Mo Sure didn't pay attention to the strong variant zombie. He continued to use his telekinesis to harvest the remaining zombies in the city. Another 20 minutes later. Finally, the 2 million zombies in the city were cleared. At this time, the city was completely quiet. It was as silent as death. Even the chirping of the insects had disappeared. More than 2 million zombies were torn apart, filling the entire city with a layer of blood mist. This kind of blood mist was not corpse gas. Corpse gas only appeared on the bodies of living zombies or mutated beasts. It was not visible to the human eye. But this layer of blood mist could be seen with the naked eye. The strong smell of blood went straight into Mo Sure's nostrils. At the same time, the evolution points in his mind finally stopped increasing. He estimated that he could get more than 10 million evolution points in this city. But the strong mutated beasts and zombies in the blood pool were all very high-leveled. Just there alone, he gained 35 million evolution points. In addition to the other mutated zombies and ordinary zombies, He gained more than 46 million evolution points. In addition to the 73 million from before, his current total evolution points had reached 73 million. It was not far from 100 million. Mo sure rubbed his swollen and painful temples. He took out 2 bottles of brain cell recovery medicine and drank them. After a while, he felt a cool and comfortable feeling in his head. The swelling and painful feeling quickly eased. In just 5 minutes, the swelling and pain in his temples had completely disappeared. His telekinesis had already recovered to its peak state. Then he said in his mind, "System, sign in. Sign in successful. Sign in event. Kill 2 million zombies. Sign in reward. Zombie puppet." Mo sure looked at the skill description. Zombie puppet. Using the flesh and blood of zombies to condense into a zombie puppet. The more flesh and blood of zombies, the more zombie puppets condensed, and the stronger they will be. The strongest can reach level 10 strong mutated zombies. Mo sure nodded. This skill was not bad. In some cases, when he couldn't do it himself, he could let the puppet do it for him. After doing this, he came to a school. With a sweep of his telekinesis, he found that there were a total of 30 humans in the 15 classrooms of the school. Apparently, these humans were the ones that the zombies had captured from the base. There were 2 people in each classroom, 1 male and 1 female. Through the memories he had plundered, Mo sure learned the reason why the zombies had locked those people up. They actually wanted to use these humans to reproduce. If zombies don't eat meat for a long time, their bodies will slowly dry up. Even strong mutant zombies were no exception. It's just that strong mutated zombies can last longer than ordinary zombies. Therefore, these zombies had already started experimenting with raising human beings in captivity. If their experiment was successful, it would spread throughout the wastelands. Keep all humans in captivity and let them breed. That way, the zombies would have an endless supply of food. Mo sure was also secretly surprised. These zombies were getting smarter and smarter. It seemed that he had to break through his limits as soon as possible and increase his strength. He activated his telekinesis and blasted open the door of the classroom where the humans were locked. Then he ignored these humans. Zombie puppet skill was activated. The flesh and blood of the surrounding zombies suddenly seemed to be alive and began to wriggle. Then, many thin hair-like tentacles grew on these flesh and blood. The tentacles between every 2 pieces of flesh and blood intertwined with each other and pulled the 2 pieces of flesh together, forming a piece of flesh and blood. After a while, the flesh and blood within 1,000 meters condensed into a huge zombie that was 80 meters tall. This zombie had a pair of thick horns that were 10 meters long. There were 6 arms on its body. Its 2 legs were like the trunk of a giant tree. It looked exactly the same as the strongest level 10 strong mutant zombie that he had seen before. Mo sure looked with the blood demon's eye. He saw that the zombie puppet's corpse aura was exactly the same as the 80-meter-tall strong evolved zombie that he had killed before. At the same time, the zombie puppet's level also appeared in his mind. Species, zombie puppet. Level 10 strong mutant zombie. A smile appeared on Mo sure's face. He activated his telekinesis. This level 10 strong mutant zombie ran quickly towards the east. Boom, boom, boom. Every time this guy ran, the ground seemed to tremble. Mo sure followed behind it from a distance. With this big guy in front of him, there would be a lot less danger. Not long after he left. In the education of the abandoned school, the 30 humans saw the classroom door that suddenly flew in. All of them were frightened. Several women almost all cried out. They had been captured for several days. Those zombies did not kill them, nor did they eat them. Instead, they sent some wild mountain fruits, meat, and canned food that had been stored for a long time. This made them feel even more strange. They had always heard that zombies ate humans. When had they ever seen zombies serving humans? Tonight, the zombies in the entire city were roaring. At the foot of the mountain in the distance, there were constant roars that shook the sky. It was as if the zombies in the entire city had rioted. This caused them to be filled with terror. At this time, the door was blasted open, and they were all completely desperate. Those zombies were finally going to attack them. In front of these powerful zombies, they were completely lambs waiting to be slaughtered. They could already imagine the scene of them being torn to pieces. This made their hearts tremble, and their bodies tremble. Many people were so scared that they were paralyzed on the ground, unable to move at all. But after a full 5 minutes, there was no more movement outside. There was no scene of zombies rushing in as they had imagined. 2 bold men quietly poked their heads out to take a look. The entire city was dead silent. Only the strong smell of blood went straight into their nostrils. They gathered their courage and went down the teaching building. Then they saw a scene that they would never forget. In the school, outside the school, on the road. Broken limbs and body parts were almost everywhere. On the walls, on the ground, on the weeds, there were bloodstains everywhere. The entire city was like hell. The few of them looked at each other. They all saw the shock and fear in each other's eyes. What exactly happened? All the zombies in the entire city were torn to pieces. Humans definitely did not have such terrifying strength. In panic, they quickly returned to the classroom and called out all the others. 30 people together fled out of the city. Since these zombies were all dead, they could take the opportunity to escape back to the base. Although this place was very far from the base, it was very likely that mutated beasts would appear on the road. But in this Azura-like city, they really could not stay any longer. This place was really too strange and too terrifying. At the same time, on the top of a building, the blood that had exploded into a ball did not dry up. Instead, many tentacles grew out. These tentacles slowly wriggled, entangled, and slowly connected together. Then, some flesh and blood grew on these tentacles. After a full half an hour, a fist-sized, dry heart condensed. Then, all the tentacles on the surface of the heart retracted into the heart. The whole dry heart lay on the roof, motionless, as if waiting for some unlucky mutated beast to come one day. You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.